Chapter 189, Men Make Plans. Chapter 189 of The Adventurous Gamer Ninja, narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer: I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. Lee took several deep breaths of air as he was sprawled on the ground. Daichi, who was sitting near him, spoke. Looks like the training your sensei is putting you through is starting to show. You were able to survive a lot longer, and that's even with those weights you have on. Lee looked at Daichi at that. So you noticed? The young gamer smirked. Of course I did. You're not the only one training with weighted gear. Lee slowly sat up and smiled at his friend. He expected something like that. Daichi got up and went to Lee. He placed his palms on Lee's chest and began using medical ninjutsu. Lee was fascinated as he watched his friend work. Is that medical ninjutsu? Yes. I learned it during my time at the capital. That's incredible. Lee grinned as he looked at his friend. Ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu. Now medical jutsu, too. It's as if there's no end to his talent and potential. He's amazing. Daichi moved his palms to Lee's arms and legs and gave him a quick full-body checkup. In just 1 year, Lee was able to go from being a nobody to a monster in taijutsu. In canon, he did it with nothing but his will and determination. But now I wonder how strong he'll be with me aiding in his growth. A few moments later, Daichi completed his work. Done. Lee got up and looked himself over in wonder. I feel good as new. That's because the tears in your muscles and cells are all healed without impeding your growth. Now you can train again right away without needing to waste time for rest and recovery. Lee, I want you to meet me here every weekend if possible. I'll heal all the wear and tears on your body. Daichi smirked as he replied. The bowl-cut ninja's eyes widened as he understood the implications. That means I can train much more and become stronger a lot faster. That's the idea. Daichi smiled, looking at the kid who had stars and tears in his eyes. Oh, my great friend Daichi, thank you. Lee jumped and tried to hug his friend, who quickly dodged him. Easy, Lee. Not a hugger. And it's not that big a deal. Here, take these as well. Daichi took out a small bottle from his pocket and tossed it to his friend. Inside the bottle there were several round pills of the same color. What's this? Lee asked as he examined the glass bottle. Those are special nutrient pills I created. The vitamins, proteins, and minerals contained in each of those pills will speed up muscle growth and strengthen your bones. They'll be a massive help for your training. Oh, but make sure you only take one every 24 hours. And make sure to only take them when you train, and drink plenty of water after you do. Lee's eyes widened as he held the precious item. He couldn't believe how much his friend was helping him. He looked at Daichi and had a complicated expression on his face. You've given so much help, but I don't have anything to give you, Lee said in a small voice. Daichi placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. You don't need to give me anything, you idiot. You're my friend. Now come on. Let's go get something to eat. Lee nodded with a wide smile. Someday I will definitely repay your kindness. Hiruzen was going over the list of few Jonin's taking part in the Chunin exams happening in the Stone Village. He thought about the one name he rejected from the list. If Daichi and Kakashi hadn't made such a commotion with their previous mission, I would have let the boy take the exam. He would have definitely passed, and then Kakashi would have been free to take Sasuke and Naruto under him. But now. For the next Chunin exam, I need to see how things are with that village before I make a decision. In the meantime, I'll have to make other arrangements for Naruto and Sasuke as well. If not Kakashi, then perhaps Tenzo could train them. He has experience with the Sharingan, fighting alongside Kakashi, and his wood style will be useful if Naruto ever loses control over the Nine Tails. He frowned as he looked at a particular name. Kabuto Yakushi is taking part in this test as well, and based on his previous track record, he's going to intentionally fail the exam. He must be attending these exams to either spy on possible targets for Orochimaru, or contacting him without drawing attention. I can't get rid of him at the moment. He is a crucial piece in my plans. The Kage then began going over reports his spy in the route sent. Danzo is suspicious, so I won't be able to make contact for a while. Identity of the primary target is still unknown. Hiruzen sighed as he leaned back. Right now is the calm before the storm, but what is the linchpin that will set off that storm? When would Orochimaru attack? Would it be an assassination attempt or something else? And with the reanimation jutsu under his command, I can't predict who all he'll bring. Without the crucial information, I cannot make a move on Danzo as well. I need to take them both out at once. Sir, Kensei Yasagi is here to see you. At that moment, his secretary came in and informed him. Hiruzen nodded, and a few minutes later, Daichi's grandfather walked into the room. Hiruzen made a gesture, and the hidden guards quickly left the room. Kensei walked into the middle of the room, and Hiruzen could tell that he was not happy. Why didn't you tell me the daimyo was aware of our actions? The old Kage sighed and replied. He confronted me during my visit to the capital, and I couldn't exactly lie to him. That man is more resourceful than I thought. I made sure to keep my movements under wraps, and yet he found out. He is not someone to be trifled with. You should know that. Did he summon you to his court? How did you know? Kensei was quiet for a while and then asked. He summoned me to his chamber and wanted to know what I had found out. He said you told him about Danzo's interference but didn't tell me any details. Since he asked, I couldn't lie or keep the information to myself. He said he will look into the matter himself and told me to stop. Hiruzen nodded his head. I see. So it went better than I assumed. What I want to know is how much you told him and how he took the news. He was angry, understandably so, but he said he'll deal with Danzo's men in the capital, and there won't be any interference from his people. And with the information he has now, I doubt it would be a difficult task. He will want something in return when all this is finished. He isn't someone who does anything without playing an angle. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes and spoke. Yes, I'm well aware. It's always a headache when dealing with him. Will this interfere with the plans put in place? Kensei was concerned that now with the daimyo involved, things would get out of hand. No. This actually works better for us. We can focus on the internal matters of the village now that Ryuga is keeping an eye on things in the capital. Kensei nodded, and they both sat in silence. They discussed their plans, and a short while later the old man got up and bid the Kage farewell, and left for home. Hidden Stone Village, Onoki went through the names of the candidates that came from the Leaf Village, and he was somewhat disappointed. So Hiruzen didn't send him after all. This would have been an excellent venue to see just how strong Tsunade's student is. Well, next time. At that second a jonin came in and kneeled. Lord Tsuchikage, all the participants have arrived and are waiting in the hall. The Kage of the Stone Village nodded, and soon the Chunin exams would begin. It wasn't just the stone ninjas who were looking for Daichi. Several genins looked closely at the handful of ninjas from the Leaf Village and frowned. A genin with the headband of the Mist Village frowned as he didn't find his target. So he didn't show up, huh? Either his teacher didn't recommend him, or he pussed out like a bitch. Either way, I can't get the information needed. And Lord Mizukage told me to test his strength during the exam. Oh well. A genin with sunglasses and green hair looked around and sighed in annoyance. Great. That kid from the Leaf is a no-show. Guess there's nothing to do except tell the Raikage that the kid didn't come. Something tells me he won't be happy. During all this, a certain genin with the Leaf Village headband was sitting quietly in the room, trying not to draw any attention to himself. But that didn't mean he was unaware of the eyes lingering on him and his teammates. For some reason, the genins from the other great villages are keeping an eye on everyone from the Leaf Village. But based on their dismissal of us, I'm sure we're not their targets. They must have been looking for Daichi. After the treasure incident at the capital and his relationship to a Sannin, it's no surprise. As the genin was in thought, his teammate called out to him as the proctor for the exam entered the room. Hey Kabuto, look alive. The exams are starting. Right, Kabuto Yakushi replied as he focused his attention on the jonin. There was also something else that required his attention, but he sent someone just as capable in his place. As the tests were taking place, 2 people were meeting in secret in one of the houses in the village. Here are the reports you wanted. A man with ash-gray hair and black circular glasses said as he handed over a scroll to his colleague. A snake crawled out of the sleeve from the man and swallowed the scroll before disappearing back into the shadow. Tell me, Kabuto, how are things going in the Leaf? You know you can always come and check it out for yourself. The bespectacled Jinin replied. Cuckoo, it's not time yet for my return. I'm sure the third Hokage would have the surprise of his life when he sees what you have in store for him, Lord Orochimaru. The man now identified as one of the Sannin chuckled, hearing those words. My return all depends on him. I need to see what his potential is. Based on my observations, Sasuke Uchiha is head and shoulders above his peers, and his talent is incredible. He is quite skilled in the ninja arts. It seems he has indeed inherited his brother's potential. Maybe not on the same level as Itachi, but he is talented nonetheless. Orochimaru nodded his head and became quiet. But he is not the strongest in that generation, is he? Even though the Sannin phrased it like a question, he already knew the answer. No. The most talented one in that generation is Daichi Hikima. I was surprised to learn that he studied under your former teammate. Based on what you told me, I didn't think Lady Tsunade would have accepted another apprentice. Kabuto replied as Daichi's picture came to his mind. He was curious to test his medical skills against one trained by another Sannin. Yes, it was a surprise to me as well, and what shocked me more is that he only studied under her for 2 years. Tsunade wouldn't half-ass anything. That includes teaching someone her skills. So if that boy returned to the village after just 2 years, then that would mean he only needed that much time to learn everything he could from her. Kabuto finished. Yes, I'm eager to meet him. Someone who's trained by Tsunade and currently under Kakashi Harake's tutelage. He's bound to show promise. I was hoping he'd be here, but it seems that's not the case. Kabuto narrowed his eyes and looked at his master. Are you planning on giving him the curse seal, Lord Orochimaru? The snake Sannin looked at his subordinate with a menacing grin. Kukuku, is that a problem, Kabuto? Kabuto shook his head and spoke. Not at all. But as I'm sure you know, if you attack Daichi, then I have a feeling Lady Tsunade won't just sit back and do nothing. And then there is also his grandfather. Kensei Yasaji, an old feeble man just like Sarutobi-sensei, both far past their prime. They are of no concern. It seems Daichi will get to enjoy his carefree life for a few more months. I'll meet him in the Chunin exams, and if he shows as much talent as the rumors say, then I'll see if I can't sway him my way. Orochimaru gave a small laugh as he imagined the look on the boy's face when they would eventually meet. Well then, I'll keep you updated. My chakra is running low, so I'll be going now. If you find any interesting specimen, do collect some samples for me, won't you, Kabuto? Kukuku. The genin smiled and slightly bowed. Of course, my lord. The next second he vanished in a puff of smoke, indicating that he was a shadow clone. Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 190, Reanimation. Tobirama Senju Chapter 190 of the Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer: I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. Hiruzen was walking through a dimly lit hall. He was alone, and there were no others present near him. Even his personal guards were absent. The hall was more of a tunnel made up of rocks and earth. In his hand was a large scroll which had the word forbidden written on it. Several minutes later, he entered a room at the end of the tunnel. I just hope Lord Second understands the reasons for my actions. The room was much larger than it seemed from the outside. It had several desks and chairs with many scrolls and materials on them. Hiruzen placed the scroll on a table and looked at another one. I was able to advance the jutsu much further with my research. His eyes then shifted to the other end of the room. In the corner of the large chamber, there was a man lying unconscious. Hiruzen frowned as he looked at the man. But finding the secrets of the jutsu came with a cost. Now I'm no different than my student. I've become a hypocrite. The Hokage took the scroll and placed it on the floor. Please forgive me for what I'm about to do, Lord Second. The Kage quickly made several seals. Summoning Jutsu. Reanimation. As soon as he completed the final hand seal, the scroll on the ground became active. Several seals came from it and surrounded the unconscious man. Dust and debris started to swirl around his body, and he looked like he was in pain. Hiruzen watched the scene with a steely heart as he had done the few times before. Several moments later, in place of the unknown man, stood another. A fair-skinned man with silver shaggy hair and red markings on his face appeared. He had blue armor with a white fur collar over a black suit. The man who was summoned was none other than the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju. Hiruzen let out a deep breath of air as he looked at the emotionless face of his predecessor and mentor. Time to see this through. The Kage of the Leaf Village walked forward and took a kunai with a special tag attached at the end. He slowly placed the tag into the back of the second's head, and as soon as he did, steam started to rise from the reanimation's body. The lifeless eyes of Tobirama gained a spark, as if he had come alive. Hiruzen walked back to his previous spot and stood in front of his teacher. Tobirama Senju slowly came to life and looked at the man in front of him in total surprise. He then looked at his own hands and body and noted the details. The second he laid his eyes on Hiruzen, he made sure to check his chakra signature and made sure it was not an enemy in disguise. I knew the day I created this jutsu that it was possible for it to be used on me, but I never expected to be resurrected by you of all people, Hiruzen. Tobirama's tone didn't indicate disappointment or anger. It contained no emotion at all. It was as if he was stating a fact. Hiruzen looked down for a second, and then looked at the man. "Forgive me, Sensei, but I had to." The second Hokage raised an eyebrow at that statement. Under normal circumstances, Hiruzen would never use a jutsu like this. But every man has his breaking point. For him to use a jutsu of this nature, that too on me, it seems he has reached that point. Something serious must have happened. Based on your appearance, I'd say it's been a few decades since I died. What's going on, Hiruzen? Why did you bring me back now? What's happening in the village? So many things, I don't even know where to begin. Tobirama didn't say a word and patiently waited for his successor to speak. The Leaf Village has faced many adversities over this last decade, but the village still stands strong, at least from an outside perspective. After you died, we've had 2 more world wars. The village had a 4th Hokage for a brief period of time. The second Hokage's eyes narrowed when he heard that. What do you mean had? What happened to him? Hiruzen sighed and replied, "He was a talented young man, a genius from his generation, but he sacrificed his life saving the village from a great disaster, the Nine Tails attack." Tobirama's ever-expressionless eyes slightly narrowed, and hands slightly clenched. For the Nine Tails to have gotten free, and that too during the last decade, I assume it got free from Lady Mito's successor? Hiruzen nodded. Yes. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. She was from the land of Whirlpool. She was the second Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. Tobirama pondered on the information and quickly came to a conclusion. He had a suspicion in his mind and wanted to confirm it. Was the woman pregnant? Yes. She was married to the 4th Hokage. It was on the day of her child's birth that the Nine Tails got loose and wreaked havoc. The 4th gave his life and sealed it away inside his son. The second Hokage listened and thought about the situation. I see, but there should have been contingencies in place for something like this. I know you're not incompetent. You must have had some safeguards in place for the birth. The birth was taking place in a secret location far away from the village. Her pregnancy was kept a secret, and only a select few knew about it. I've had special Anbu members on standby guarding the location, and there was a barrier around the whole area created by the 4th. And the Nine Tails still got free. It seems to me that this was no accident. The 3rd Hokage agreed with that sentiment. Yes, I investigated the matter. My wife was there, delivering the baby, but she died with her throat slashed. The guards stationed were also killed. The attack had a perpetrator. Tobirama's mind went through the scenario described, and the conclusions he drew troubled him greatly. Someone who knew the location and could get past such precautions put in place, and to somehow separate a Kage and force the Nine Tails to attack here. And on top of that, they had to have known top-secret information, meaning this is an inside job. Only someone with intimate knowledge of the village could pull off something like this. Do you have any suspects in mind? Tobirama asked his student. The last thing Kushina said before she died was Uchiha. Tobirama sighed in irritation. Why is it always that clan? What happened to the Uchiha who did this? Or was the whole clan involved? He looked at the old man and questioned. We don't know the identity of the one responsible, but the Uchiha clan is gone now. They were massacred. Tobirama was surprised to hear that information. Tell me everything regarding the incident. After the Nine Tails attack, we suspected the Uchiha clan and their compound was relocated to the outskirts of the village. After that, Hiruzen explained how the suspicion towards the clan grew and the beginning of the clan's revolt. Their plan for a coup and about the double agent Itachi Uchiha. The mission assigned to Itachi and finally the extermination of the clan. The second Hokage sighed as he listened to the whole thing. To think such a thing happened. I suppose this was an inevitability. The Uchiha was a cursed clan after all. Hiruzen didn't share the level of suspicion his sensei had towards the Uchiha clan. I didn't want it to happen, but part of me is grateful that a civil war is averted. Where is Danzo? Why isn't he here? At the second Hokage's question, Hiruzen looked down in sadness. Danzo is one of the reasons I had to use the forbidden jutsu on you. I'm afraid he's no longer the man you once knew. That information shocked the reanimated Hokage. Hiruzen, what are you implying? Danzo's loyalty to the village is unquestionable. That may have been the case till several years ago, but now he is putting his own interest ahead of the village. He still cares for the village. I have no doubt about that, but I fear his actions are causing more problems for the village than they solve. The second Hokage rubbed the bridge of his nose in frustration. This is unexpected. You said Danzo is one of the reasons. What's the other? My student, Orochimaru. He is another genius this village had produced, but his fascination with immortality and forbidden jutsus has caused him to go down a dark path. He is researching many forbidden jutsu, and prime among them is the reanimation technique. He has conducted immoral experiments on the Leaf citizens and has conducted bloodline thefts. Tobirama sensed the slight shift in the third Hokage's chakra. What are you not telling me, Hiruzen? Hiruzen closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He then looked at his sensei and spoke. I believe he is experimenting with Lord Hashirama's blood. The Senju only narrowed his eyes, but Hiruzen could tell the man was furious hearing that piece of info. Hiruzen looked down and continued. I condemned my student's actions, deeming him a danger to the village. Yet here I am doing the same thing. The hypocrisy of the whole situation doesn't elude me. The man who you used as a sacrifice to bring me back, who was he? Tobirama asked suddenly. He was a prisoner of the village. He committed rape and murder and was sentenced to life in prison. The reanimated Kage nodded and questioned again. I assume this isn't the first time you've used this jutsu. The people who were used in the previous instances, were they innocent people? The third shook his head. No. I only used this jutsu 3 times before, to study its effects and secrets, and the ones I've used as sacrifice weren't innocent. 2 were captured enemy ninjas with a large body count, and another was a prisoner sentenced to execution. And there's the difference. You used the jutsu on those who committed heinous acts, while your student used whomever he could. There is a difference, Hiruzen. Besides, how do you think I created this jutsu? Hiruzen looked at his sensei and saw an expression he hadn't seen in a long time. Sadness. My brother never condoned the use of this jutsu. He was against its creation. I used several enemies to research and create this forbidden technique, while I had some help from Mito. That news startled Hiruzen. Wait, Lady Mito helped you create this jutsu? Tobirama Senju nodded. Yes, this technique dealt with the souls in the afterlife. The Uzumaki clan had a small group of people who created methods to interact with the Reaper, and thus gained knowledge on souls. They considered it sort of a religion. The Uzumaki Mask Temple, the reigning Kage deduced. Yes, they are the ones who build it. Even though Mito questioned the morality of creating a jutsu that uses the dead to fight, she helped me in its creation nonetheless. Yes, so you're the one who knows the most about this jutsu. It's why I summoned you. I need to know of the ways it can be stopped. It wasn't mentioned in any of the scrolls. Hiruzen explained his reasons for bringing the Senju back to life. Very well, but before that, tell me, what happened to the Senju clan? What happened to Hashirama's descendants? Hiruzen slightly grimaced as he thought about the situation. The Senju clan is integrated with the village, and the one remaining with a direct link to the clan is Tsunade. She is on an extended leave outside the village at the moment. The Senju's eyes narrowed. Elaborate. The old Kage winced at the teacher's tone. Sorry, Tsunade. Her brother died after he just became genin, and later Tsunade's fiancé died in the war. And she was unable to save him. These events traumatized her and she left the village. She's been wandering the fire country ever since. Tobirama was not happy with the situation happening in the Leaf Village. Your student must no doubt be capable, and now he's a traitor working against the Leaf? And then there's Danzo's betrayal, Nine Tails' attack, Tsunade's exile, and the destruction of the Uchiha clan. Things have certainly not gone the way I expected it to. Tobirama thought about the fate of the two clans that created the village. Only one loyal Uchiha is in the village, the other is known as a traitor, and the only living person who bears the Senju name is in a self-imposed exile. To think this is what has become of the founding clans of this village. Forgive me, Sensei. I failed to fulfill my duties as capably as you did. This is no time to wallow in self-pity, Hiruzen. We have much work to do. The Hokage was happy that his teacher was willing to help, but he didn't want it. Sensei, I didn't bring you back to make you shoulder my burdens. You already gave your life for the Leaf. I can't ask any more of you. I will protect the village at all costs. I just need your help with certain things. After that, I'll let go of the jutsu and make sure your peace isn't disturbed. I understand where you're coming from, Hiruzen, but I can't leave as it is. And when I said we needed to get to work, I had no intention of revealing myself to the public. I will help you from the shadows, and this will only be for a short time, just until everything is sorted out. After that, I'll rest in peace once again. Hiruzen smiled slightly and nodded to that condition. They had much to accomplish. Even though he died now that he was brought back, Tobirama couldn't leave the village in such a pitiful state. Brother, I will make sure the village you sacrificed your life for stands tall even through the darkest of times. Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder, contact link in the description. Chapter 191. C-Rank Search and Destroy. A book? Chapter 191 of The Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. It was early morning in the Leaf Village. The special two-man Genin team was making their way to the Hokage Tower. Kakashi had deemed his student ready for another C-Rank mission. Before long, they were in front of the Hokage. Hiruzen smiled as he looked at the two ninjas. At that moment, Daichi noticed something strange. Is it just me, or does he seem like he's in a good mood? It's his smile? It's definitely different from the ones before. Something must have gone his way. Daichi didn't remark on what he noticed and kept a straight face. So are you two ready for your next C-Rank mission? Yes, sir. The young genin replied with a small smile. The Hokage handed the mission scroll and explained the situation to the team. Daichi read the details of the quest and quickly accepted it. It looked like an ordinary quest with no hidden agenda. You will meet the client in the location marked on the scroll. Your task is to retrieve some valuables that were stolen from his house. Daichi was surprised at the mission. Finding lost items? Feels like déjà vu. But there is one condition, the Hokage continued. Among the stolen valuables is a book containing information sensitive to the client. He wants the book destroyed. Your client Denjima will explain the details. Both Kakashi and Daichi nodded and soon left the office. Hiruzen sat back in his chair and thought about what the other Kage of the Hidden Leaf was up to right now. He recalled the conversation he had with Lord Second. Flashback. There are several things that needs to be done. I will modify the barrier seal formula and strengthen it. We need to make sure something like the Nine Tails attack never happens again. Tobirama said as he looked at a scroll. There is something else I've been meaning to ask. It's about your teleportation jutsu. Tobirama looked up from his scroll and motioned Hiruzen to continue. There has only been one person who could learn that jutsu and use it like you could, and it was Minato. Is there no one else who could use it? There are his personal guards, but all three have to be present to use it, and that teleportation jutsu is far too valuable to be ignored. But the problem is, even with your notes, the jutsu is far too complicated to use. Hiruzen didn't say anything more as he knew his predecessor understood what he wanted. You want me to rework the jutsu formula and make it so that someone capable can learn it? The old Kaiju nodded. You're the only one familiar with space-time ninjutsu. Even my knowledge on the subject is spotty at best. Tobirama pondered on it and agreed. He has a point. That jutsu is indeed too valuable to be left alone, but I also need to make sure it's useless in enemy hands. I can certainly modify the jutsu, but I'll have to create some contingencies just in case. And simplifying the jutsu means its power will also be reduced. There will be more restrictions. I understand. Hiruzen nodded as he already has a list of Jonin candidates in mind who he believes can learn the jutsu. Tobirama crossed his arms and spoke about the things he needed to do. Studying the curse seal from that girl Anko will take time, and creating a suitable removal method even more. I will put it at the bottom of the list. First and foremost, we need to strengthen the village. Creating countermeasures for the reanimation jutsu is the priority. The second Hokage thought about the ordeal. If his student attacks the village, he will no doubt have several reanimations under him. And based on what Hiruzen said, Orochimaru will definitely improve the jutsu. He must be testing its limits even now. So the power and control aspect of the technique will certainly be greater than it is now. This is my first priority. And then there is the counter to the Genjutsu Koto Amatsukami. That jutsu is quite powerful, but if Danzo only has one eye, then we have a chance. Hiruzen continued. He knew there were quite a lot of things needed to be done, and not a lot of time. The second Hokage nodded. I will begin working on the reanimation. I need you to get me a few things. Yes, sensei. Flashback end. Hiruzen sighed and got back to work while his teacher was busy unraveling the secrets of one of the most dangerous forbidden jutsu in the world. Daichi and his teacher got ready for the mission and headed for the gates. Once they notified the guards of their departure, they quickly moved through the forest. So where are we headed, sensei? At Daichi's question, Kakashi recalled the information given in the scroll. Well, there's an inn about 3 kilometers from here. Our client said he would wait for us there. The young Jinin nodded, and the two ninjas quickly made their way to the location. The inn was a modest one that the commoners use. Daichi and Kakashi stepped inside and went to the front desk. Excuse me, we're looking for Denjima. The woman at the desk looked at the ninja in front of her and nodded. He's expecting you. Room 205. The Jonin smiled and thanked the lady. The duo made their way to the room and saw a guard standing in front of the door. We're here to meet your client. Kakashi spoke and showed the mission scroll with the leaf emblem. The guard nodded and knocked on the door. Come in. The door was opened and the two ninjas entered the room. A man in his late 60s greeted the ninjas with a smile. He had a thin, long, neatly kept beard and mustache. He was wearing a black attire, and coupled with his look made Daichi think he was a butler. Please take a seat. My name is Kakashi Hatake, and this is my student Daichi Hekima. We're assigned to your C-rank mission. The Jonin introduced himself and his student. The man nodded, and once everyone was settled, he began going over the details of the mission. My name is Denjima. I represent Master Ayama Jido. The Jonin in the room didn't show any outward change in expression, but he was surprised. Where have I heard that name before? A few days ago, there was a robbery at Master Ayama's residence. The safe in which he kept his valuables was broken into. Your task is to retrieve the valuables. But that is secondary. There was a book containing secret information about Master Ayama's personal business. You are to bring me the book so that I can destroy it. If retrieval of the book is not possible for any reason, make sure it's destroyed. Do they know the value of the book, or what's inside it? Kakashi asked. No, they don't. And you have to retrieve it before they figure it out. Do you know who broke into the house? Daichi asked, and Denjima nodded. Master Ayama is a small but successful businessman, but he has a rival, Butsuba. He is the one responsible for this robbery. The theft was an inside job, and we found and dealt with the thief accordingly. Your task is to infiltrate Butsuba's home, retrieve the book, and all the other items stolen. Here's a list of all the items kept in the safe. With that, Denjima gave a piece of paper to Daichi. Kakashi nodded as he thought about the whole thing. So you caught the one who actually stole from you. I'll need to see him or her. Denjima slightly frowned. Why do you need to see him? Well, he might have information that will be useful to us. I have some questions for him. The man closed his eyes as he thought about the demand the Jonin set forth. Well, this isn't unexpected. No point in delaying it. Very well. He's currently incapacitated in the other room. Come. Denjima replied, and with that he led the two ninjas to the other room where the occupant was lying unconscious. So they anticipated that I would ask to see the thief for interrogation. Kakashi thought as he looked at the sleeping man. Daichi, why don't you wait outside? I'll be done shortly. The genin nodded and did as he was instructed. So Sensei also wanted to make sure we have the right guy before breaking into someone's home. It's common sense. I wonder what type of interrogation techniques he'll use. No sound was heard from the room for several minutes, and then the door opened and Kakashi came out with a calm smile. Well, we have what we need. Time for us to get to work. We will return here once the mission is completed. With that, the Jonin and Genin from the Leaf Village left the inn to complete their mission. Denjima sighed and went to the upper floor of the building. He knocked on a room marked 318, and a man in ordinary clothing opened the door. Master Ayama, the two ninjas have left for the mission. The man now identified as Ayama nodded. Were there any problems? No, sir. Everything went as expected. But do you mind me asking, what if they decided to keep the book for themselves and try to learn the secrets of your business? Ayama shook his head. It's not a concern. There is a rule that says ninjas shouldn't open confidential documents pertaining to their clients. They won't break that rule, and even if they do, they won't be able to learn the secrets of the book unless they have the key. Denjima nodded and left. I understand, sir. I will wait for their arrival. What kind of interrogation techniques did you use? I didn't hear any sounds, and when you came out, he didn't look physically hurt. So I'm guessing you went with some sort of psychological attack? Daichi asked as he looked at his teacher. I could have. Or, the young genin sighed. Or you could have used your Sharingan to get the information. It was much easier since I didn't know anything about him. Daichi nodded. So was he right? Is this Butsuba guy really the one behind the theft? He asked his teacher. Kakashi nodded his head at Daichi's question. Yes. And based on what I learned, he's a small-time merchant. He would only have ordinary guards for protection. Something I don't understand. Why would he want to destroy the book if he gets it? The Jonin shrugged, since he didn't know the answer. Perhaps he wants to make sure his business secrets and tactics don't reach into rival hands again. But whatever the case, our mission is to retrieve it, and if not, destroy it. So how do we proceed, Sensei? I have the location of his home, but we won't go break down the front door. We'll do this with stealth. We'll have to scout the location and see how many guards are present. Once we have all the information, we'll strike a little after midnight. The young gamer nodded to the plan, and they made their way to their target's home. Soon the two ninjas reached a compound surrounded by walls and guards on all sides. Inside the compound stood a small mansion 3 stories tall. Daichi used chakra sense, and didn't find anyone with significant strength. All are normal guards, so that's why that Denjima guy applied for a C rank. I thought there would be some ninjas considering the guy's wealth, but it looks like that's not the case. Kakashi and Daichi were hidden in the trees surrounding the small mansion. Kakashi made a few hand signals and gave Daichi instructions. Hold position. Observe guards. Moving to observe viable entry points. Daichi nodded and Kakashi vanished without making a single leaf move. The young gamer used observe skill on every guard he saw to make sure there weren't any hidden surprises. Daichi mentally noted down their number, patrol paths, their behavior, and more. Time went by and the sun slowly set. So this is what Kakashi meant when he said we needed to have patience and D rank was the best way to learn it. This is so goddamn boring. Kakashi joined Daichi and the duo waited for the perfect time to strike. They saw the guards change shifts, and Daichi could see that almost all of them were undisciplined or sleepy. Soon the time came. Kakashi gave a single hand signal, "Let's move," and the two ninjas quietly vanished from their spot. Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 192, Sins of the Father. Chapter 192 of the Adventurous Gamer Ninja, narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. Daichi followed Kakashi to the top-floor balcony of the small mansion. There was a guard who stood by the large door who was keeping a vigilant watch. But despite his alertness, he wasn't able to sense the two ninjas who got behind him. With a quick, well-placed jab, Kakashi knocked the man unconscious, and without drawing any attention. Daichi had used Observe on the man and had gotten his basic details and quickly created a shadow clone who transformed into the now sleeping guard. The door leading into the house was locked from the inside, but Daichi quickly picked the lock. The two ninjas quietly entered the house, and they could sense that they were alone in the room. "You remember what we were looking for, don't you?" Kakashi asked his student in a low voice. Daichi simply nodded his head in affirmation. "I have the layout of the building. We'll need to sweep the house quickly and without alerting them of our presence. Let's split up." Daichi agreed and parted ways from his sensei. Both of them picked a room and quietly slipped inside, and the search for the stolen items began. Daichi quickly and meticulously searched through the rooms he entered. He looked at the small safe and frowned. I doubt he'd keep stolen items with his own money, so he must have placed it somewhere else. But on the off chance that I'm wrong, Daichi created multiple shadow clones and had them quietly move through the shadows of the house. He began working on the safe while his clones searched the rest. One clone entered a room that looked more like an office. As he looked around, Daichi noticed that there were several papers with letters and numbers, with most crossed out and some circled. Strange. He was trying to decipher some kind of code. But there doesn't seem to be anything here that's written in code. Maybe. He looked around and finding nothing else among the many papers, Daichi opened the locked drawer under the desk. His stealth skill was leveling up. Jackpot. Inside the desk was the book the client wanted retrieved and destroyed. Daichi took the book and inspected it. It was a simple leather-bound book with a brown cover. He was tempted to open it, but decided against it. So this book must have been encoded. He was trying to figure out the code. What's in it? Some business tactics or something else? Daichi looked at the papers and then shook his head. Figuring out the secret of the book was not part of the mission. The young Jainin created a shadow clone and quickly dispelled it, relaying the news to the real Daichi and everyone else. I need to find a jutsu that can relay messages without creating and dispelling a shadow clone. Daichi secured the book and left the room. As he looked around, he suddenly heard some commotion coming from outside. Looks like they found out about that clone. There were sounds of people fighting and yelling for a few seconds before everything went quiet. Did my clone take care of them, or... Just as this thought passed through Daichi, the memories of the shadow clone disguised as the guard came to him. So the guy I was impersonating was a lefty, and since I was using my right hand, one of the guys figured it out. And even though I quickly knocked him down, a few others saw me and made the commotion. Oh well. At that moment, Kakashi appeared in front of his student. "I found the client's jewels. Did you get the book?" Daichi nodded. "Well then, our work here is done. Let's vanish." Both ninjas vanished in a pile of leaves the next second, and moments later the small villa was crawling with thugs looking to impress their boss. But Tsuba woke up from his sleep due to all the screaming of his men, and quickly switched the lights on in the house. Damn it! Did someone get in here? He quickly went to his safe and found all his valuables there, but when he looked for the stolen items he hid in his secret stash, he found them missing. Damn. Ayama sent someone here. I didn't think he'd find out so soon. That thief must have screwed up and got caught. The man quickly rushed to his office and found the book missing and cursed. "Find the intruders. I want them found now." He screamed at his men. The guards searched every inch of the house, but sadly they couldn't find even a hint of Daichi or Kakashi. Here are the stolen items, the jewels and the book. Kakashi gave the items to Denjima, and the first thing he inspected was the book. He carefully examined it, and a minute later he was satisfied and convinced that it was indeed the real book and not some copy. He then slightly narrowed his eyes and looked at the two. "You didn't look inside this, did you?" Daichi had a small frown hearing that question, but Kakashi was nonchalant. "Not at all. We're professionals, and we know how to handle sensitive documents," the Jonin replied in a smooth tone. Denjima looked at the two for a few moments and nodded his head as if he was satisfied. "Your work is done, and you did it splendidly. Thank you. I knew I could count on you leaf ninjas." Denjima gave a polite smile to the two leaf shinobi and gave them the mission completion slip. Daichi and Kakashi quickly left the inn and made their way back to the leaf village. As the gamer ninja jumped through the trees, he had a question in the back of his mind. Why didn't the system issue me an option of opening the book and finding its secrets when it gave me the mission? When I heard what they wanted, I thought for sure the system would issue something like open the book and find its secrets or not. I probably would have refused unless the rewards were great, but still, the fact that it didn't even show up, it must have been some mundane secret info. Well, mundane from my perspective. When I used Observe on the book, it showed that it was Nebumuma Jido who wrote the book, and the information was in code. It said the information could destroy his family if it came to light, but nothing more. Must be some sex scandal or business corruption or something. Well, not my concern. Daichi didn't give it any more thought, and the two ninjas silently made their way back to the village. Back at the inn, the smile on Denjima's face vanished as soon as the two shinobi were out of his sight. He quickly made his way to the upper floor where his master resided. The door quickly opened after just a couple of knocks. Ayama Jido was nervous about the whole ordeal, but when he saw his faithful servant bring him his book, he let out a breath of relief. "The book has been recovered." "But my lord, what is so important inside it that you're going to destroy it?" Denjima politely asked his master. Ayama gave a tired smile at that. "Some secrets are best left buried, my friend." Denjima bowed his head and didn't ask any more. He gave the book to his master and left the room. Ayama took a lighter and set the edge of the book alight. He walked to the nearby trash can and threw the burning book inside. As he saw the flames eat away the pages of the book, he recalled a certain memory. It was a conversation he had with his late father. Flashback. Nebuma Jido, father of Ayama Jido, was lying in his bed sick. He was at the end of his life, and he knew it. As he was coming to terms with his life in his final moments, his son came into his room. "What is this?" Ayama asked his dying father in anger as he held a brown book. "I was going through the files and found this a few days ago, hidden beneath the scrolls. I couldn't understand this since it was written in code. At first I thought this was some business deals you wanted to keep secret." "Then why did you look through them?" Ayama's father asked in a tired sigh. "I had to know. I know the code used in this book. You taught it to me when I was little, after all. So it wasn't that hard to decipher the book. I was expecting some information about our mining operations, but this... Tell me it isn't true." The man's voice slightly cracked at the end. Nebuma looked down, unable to form words or even look at his son. His silence made Ayama drop the book in disbelief. "I can't believe you. You're a monster. It was wartime. I did what I had to do to survive." Nebuma took several wheezing breaths and replied, "And if they ever find out what you did, even if you're dead, they will come for me and my family." The dying man shook his head. "They won't find out. That book is the only proof that exists." He looked at shocked Ayama and spoke in a low voice. "I'm sorry, I wasn't the man you thought. I was." With those last words, he took his last breath, and life left his eyes. "Father!" Ayama rushed to his father's bedside, but there was nothing he could do. Flashback end. Ayama looked at the last few burning embers of the book. "I should have destroyed this thing that night. If the Leaf Village or the Hokage had ever found out that my father helped other villages facilitate the kidnapping of Leaf Ninjas during the war, my family and I would have been killed. It was a risk giving this mission to the Leaf Shinobi, but if I had given it to anyone else and they had become suspicious, then I could have been in big trouble. But my gamble paid off. The past and the sins of my father won't haunt my family anymore." Hokage Office. Mission completed without a problem. Here are the mission reports. Kakashi handed the files to his Kage and stepped back. Daichi got the mission completion reward, which was 7,000 XP, and its 15% bonus of 1,050 XP. Well done, you two, the Hokage replied, and then he focused his attention on the genin in the room. Daichi, Kakashi will be unavailable for a few weeks, so there won't be any C-rank missions for a while, but you're more than welcome to complete the D-rank missions on your own. And I would also like to see how far you've come with the third step in change in chakra nature of water at the end of this month. The young genin was confused. If I may ask, Lord Hokage, is there any particular reason you wish to see my progress? The scroll I gave you was written by the second Hokage. The information it contains is quite valuable, and I wish to know if you have grasped the concepts in it or if it's simply beyond your reach. That is all. Mastering the third step is a very difficult agenda. The genin nodded his head. I understand, Lord Hokage. I'll work on the change in chakra nature and complete a few D-rank missions in between till Sensei is free again. Good. You're dismissed. Daichi left and Kakashi stood behind. Once the door to his office closed, Hiruzen became serious. What's going on, sir? The Kage took a scroll and tossed it to the Jonin, who swiftly caught it. Kakashi, that scroll has all of Minato's notes on his teleportation jutsu. I need you to study it. But sir, I've already tried it years ago. Sensei's teleportation jutsu. The complexity of it. I understood most of its aspects, but I just can't use it. That variation might be impossible for you to learn, but I'm developing a simplified version of the teleportation jutsu. I will give you the modified technique in a few days. I need you to study this scroll and prepare when the time comes. The silver-haired Jonin was surprised to hear that. I didn't realize that you had knowledge of space-time ninjutsu arts. No offense, sir. None taken. And it's not me who's modifying the jutsu, but someone else. He is much more versed in the sealing arts. The Kage replied with a chuckle. Someone who's good with sealing arts. Is it Lord Jiraiya? The Jonin asked. No, I'm afraid I can't divulge his identity. I understand, sir. I'll prepare. The old Kage nodded and soon dismissed the Jonin. He leaned back in his chair and thought about the next move. I need a few trusted and capable Jonin to learn this jutsu. And Kakashi is a good start. If he gets the hang of it, I'll give it to the rest of the candidates. Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 193, Nature Training. Water Chapter 193 of the Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. A lone genin sat in the middle of the lake flowing through Training Ground 3 and was meditating. There were several birds sitting on his shoulders and legs and letting out small chirps, but their noises didn't distract the child. He had now been sitting there for over 5 days. The genin neither ate nor slept as he formed a deep and vast connection with the water element. Several meters away, the boy's teacher stood and looked at the child. The silver-haired Jonin had a stoic face as he looked at his student. It's almost 6 days now. He hasn't moved an inch from that spot. His concentration and will is certainly amazing. At that moment, Kakashi sensed another presence joining him. Kensei walked up to Kakashi and stood near the tree lines. He watched his adopted grandson train the change in chakra nature of water. He remembered what Daichi said to him before coming to the training ground. Hey Gramps, I'll be spending the next few weeks improving my water nature chakra skills. I've hit a block, and I have an idea as to how to get past it, but I'll need time. So I'm going to take a couple weeks off. I've already informed Sensei. Daichi said to his grandpa before leaving the house. What are you going to do? At Kensei's question, the boy smiled. I think meditation is the key to solving my problem. The old veteran ninja merely nodded. Good luck. He was proud of the man Daichi was becoming. If he succeeds, he'll have achieved what only a handful of people in the world have accomplished. The old man said in a small voice, His growth is unprecedented. To learn the third step in just a few months. It's insane. I don't think even Minato-sensei could have accomplished something like that. The Jonin commented without taking his eyes off the boy. Kensei smirked and spoke. He will only learn it right now, but he won't be able to master it in such a short time. That level of proficiency still requires months of dedicated training, but his progress is still impressive nonetheless. The two men didn't say anything else and just watched the boy. As they stood for several minutes, they suddenly noticed a change happening in the water flow around the boy. He's coming out of his meditation. Did he succeed? That was the question on both of their minds. A few seconds later, they both felt a massive rise in the boy's chakra. What's going on? Daichi was in a deep meditative state. He completed the first phase of the third step, but felt as if he was stuck and couldn't move further. He could quickly extract water from plants and the ground, but it was not quick enough, and he needed to concentrate quite a bit to achieve the feat. And thus, after reading several books and notes, Daichi decided to meditate. He found that the calm river flowing through the middle of his training ground would be ideal. Even though 6 days is a short time, for Daichi it may as well have been weeks. While he meditated, he began examining the water flowing under him. He contemplated the temperature, movements, and weight of the water. He imagined it as a part of his body. What it felt like to be the water. He spent every second pondering the existence of this life-giving element and tried to understand it. Days passed with Daichi making slow progress, but on the dawn of the 6th day, Daichi finally had a great understanding of water nature. Due to having a brief enlightenment, you have obtained +1 wis. A powerful connection was formed with the water element. Skill water affinities level has risen by 1. Skill chakra flows level has risen by 1. X2. Skill water extraction techniques level has risen by 1. X6. The notifications alerted Daichi and he opened his eyes. He looked at the messages and had a small smile on his face. Finally. I understand now. But before I test the results, there is something else I must do. Sensing movements from the boy, the birds all quickly flew away. Daichi smiled as he looked at the scene. Then, without wasting a second, the young genin opened his status page. He looked at the chakra stat under the primary stats. I have 591 stat points. Just holding on to them will only hinder me from this point forward. And this will also give me the opportunity to test my theory. Time to increase this stat and take it to the next level. Daichi added 84 points to the stat and watched it get up to 500. The moment the stat reached that number, several notifications appeared. But Daichi was far too immersed in the feeling of his chakra being increased to notice the blue boxes right away. Amazing. Daichi couldn't help but exclaim out loud. This feeling, it's incredible. It feels as if I'm overflowing with energy, as if I can accomplish anything. Just before Daichi could let out a manic laugh from the high of overflowing chakra, his mental skill calmed him down. Once calmed down, the boy took several deep breaths and regained his peaceful state of mind. He then looked at the various blue boxes stacked up in front of him. Chakra stat has reached 500. CP formula is revised. The skill Advanced Chakra Affinity has evolved to Supreme Chakra Affinity. The skill Advanced Chakra Regeneration has evolved to Supreme Chakra Regeneration. This increases the chakra points and chakra regeneration speed of the player. Note, Supreme Chakra Affinity and Supreme Chakra Regeneration skills have now reached max level. Congratulations, you have successfully trained 2 skills to their highest level. Warning, Chakra stat has reached 500. Cannot increase this stat with training anymore. Can only use free stat points to increase the number. So even though the skills have reached max level, the system has no problems with increasing stat points. Good. Daichi then looked at the warning, and he wasn't surprised. I knew it. So my theory was right. Once a stat reaches level 500, there will be a restriction from the system. Now I will only be able to use points for this stat. Then this must be the case for the other stats as well. I see. Daichi opened the skill list and looked at the 2 new maxed out skills. New effects were added along with a 150% increase in chakra strength and defense-based skills. My chakra points have also gotten a serious boost. Looks like I'll be able to complete Tsunade's secret technique soon. Only after confirming everything and closing all the blue system boxes did Daichi pay attention to the 2 ninjas hanging back in the forest. They must be surprised about the rapid chakra increase. But I have an excuse for that. I'm sure they're also eager to see my progress. Well, can't blame them. I'm also looking forward to this. Daichi got up from his spot and multiple bone pops could be heard. The boy stretched his body and felt much better. With a smile, he walked to the shore and greeted the two ninjas who came to see him. Going by that smile, I take it you know how to move past your problem? Kakashi asked, but he already knew the answer. The boy nodded. Yes. You were right. I just needed the right mindset and instinct. What was that huge chakra release just now? Since I understand the water chakra nature more thoroughly, I felt that it was time to cut loose and really test my limits and progress of third-step skills. And for that, holding back would be counterproductive. Daichi gave a smooth reply. The Jonin teacher didn't ask any more and just nodded his head and hummed. Kensei knew it wasn't the whole truth, but didn't say anything about it. He kept his thoughts to himself since his grandson didn't want to reveal them to his teacher. Well, no time to waste then. With those words, Daichi began moving inward into the training ground and away from the nearby river. Once he reached the clearing in the distance, he stopped and let out a breath. Kensei and Kakashi both stood a few meters behind the boy. The genin closed his eyes and stood motionless. He let out a breath and then looked around, creating a powerful water jutsu with just the use of atmosphere. That's the goal. The next second, with lightning speed, he went through several hand seals. His concentration peaked as he began executing the jutsu. Water style. Water wall jutsu. Daichi's goal was to create a powerful water wall from the atmosphere. Up until now, he had been gathering chakra, changing its nature to water and spitting out the needed volume for the jutsu or using external sources if available. But now he could feel the difference. As he went through the hand seals and prepared, his chakra spread outward from his body in fast but small, precise quantities. With great clarity, Daichi could sense the presence of water particles in the air. Come on, focus on the space around me. Visualize the water particles in the air. Force the molecules together. Collect as many particles as possible and combine them. These thoughts went through Daichi's mind in less than a second. The eyes of Kakashi and Kensei, who were standing a short distance behind Daichi, widened in disbelief. Kensei looked at the fast swirling and increasing vortex of water with Daichi standing in the center. I knew he could do it, but still, to see and experience it, it's totally different. Kakashi already had his Sharingan out and was amazed with what he saw. With each second, the jutsu got bigger and bigger. To have such fast and precise control over the spread of his chakra and to even create such a powerful water-style jutsu, especially where there is no water, there is no mistaking it. Daichi has just become the most powerful water-style jutsu user in the whole Leaf Village. Daichi stood in the center of a swirling mass of water that grew bigger and bigger by the second. He could sense his chakra seeping into the ground, trees, and even saturate the air and extract and combine the water particulates. The young gamer wasn't satisfied with the amount of water gathered after about a dozen seconds. More. I have to see my limits, and then move beyond them. Come on, I need to create more water. Find the two atoms. Combine hydrogen and oxygen. Use heat as a catalyst. He closed his eyes, concentrated, and increased the chakra output. He could sense the molecules in the air, and he added a minute amount of heat to start the process. The next second, the speed of water formation increased. Daichi thought about nothing but the task he was attempting. The ground cracked from the sheer force, trees shook, and the leaves flew all around in the air. After about 30 seconds, Daichi opened his eyes. All around him was fast swirling water. It was several meters high, and there was a high volume of water concentrated and held in the air. The boy looked in wonder at the clear liquid surrounding him. As he stood there, Daichi felt as if he had achieved inner peace. He closed his eyes and basked in the feeling for a few moments. A few seconds later, a large grin formed on the genin's face. He sensed no life present for several meters in front of him. Immediately, he began forming several different seals for his next jutsu. In moments, he completed the long sequence of hand seals. Water style, Water Dragon Shockwave. The gathered water swiftly changed form and took the shape of a large dragon with yellow eyes. With a ferocious roar, it rushed forward, destroying everything in its path. Crushing trees, rocks, boulders. Nothing stood in its ways and survived. Due to the crystal-clear water, Daichi saw the aftermath of his jutsu and what it left behind. He was satisfied with its strength and cut the chakra off to the jutsu. The dragon kept going for a couple more seconds before losing form, and then the water came crashing down and kept moving forward. Daichi looked ahead and saw the devastating power of his technique. "Did you really have to do that?" Kakashi came near the boy and asked with a tired sigh. He looked at the wrecked training ground in front of him and let out a deep breath. "Oh, Tenzo is not going to be happy. I had to see for myself how far I have come." Daichi didn't say anything else. Kensei came and patted the boy's back. "Your jutsu reminds of the ones Lord Second used in his times. I've only seen him fight a few times, and it was incredible. The sheer power, versatility, and the cunning way he used his techniques, the way he created water from air. Daichi, you're finally stepping into the realms of legends." The old man had no problems with showering Daichi with praise, especially after the performance he just saw. The boy smiled at the compliment. "Thank Gramps, but this is just a start. I'm going to surpass them all." Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 194, Joint D-Rank Mission, Chapter 194 of the Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer: I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. It has been a few days since Daichi's water training and stat upgrade in the forest. Since he had made significant improvements, the boy decided to take a few days off to rest and relax. Other than completing the daily exercise tasks he had set for himself, Daichi didn't do anything else and just enjoyed his time. "It's been so long since I just spent time doing nothing." Daichi was in his backyard under a tree, enjoying the quiet atmosphere. Even though his body was relaxing, his mind was working on what to tackle next. "Let's see my progress. I'll decide from there." Status. The boy's eyes immediately went to the primary stats. Plats. Strength, 277 vitality, 289 dexterity, 235 agility, 275 intelligence, 218. Chakra, 500 wisdom, 14. Strength, vitality, and agility are all close to 300. There is no point in wasting time getting them to 300 by training. Using points to get to the next stage is the best move. I have 507 free points remaining. I should at least use some of it now. Having made a decision, Daichi added 23 points to strength stat, 11 points to vitality, and 25 points to agility. A total of 59 points to get these three stats to 300. That's a good trade-off. Now till these reach the mid-400s, I'll just increase them using training. A few seconds after the three stats reached 300 points, several system notifications started popping up. Daichi quickly felt the changes in his body. He felt his muscles tighten and felt the increased power coursing through his body. The young gamer began looking through each of the messages. Strength stat has reached 300. The passive skill, Giant Strength, has evolved to Tank Man. So the skill evolved. Tank Man, huh? I suppose it's a fitting name for a fighter like me. I wonder what's changed. The boy noticed that new effects were added to the skill. Augmented muscle density and bone strength, a reduction in damage taken and incoming levels, damage nullification of certain levels. Not bad. Vitality stat has reached 300. HP formula is revised. You have gained the new skill, Life Return. Daichi immediately opened the details of the new skill. Life Return, active, max, an active skill given to the player when vitality has 300. This skill allows the user to absorb the stamina and health of their target and improve one's own vitality. Effect. Increase in HP and SP depends on the health and stamina absorbed from the target. Can permanently increase stamina and vitality stats with Life Return. Note: skill has a cooldown time of 2 hours. The user must be in physical contact with the target to activate the skill. 10 seconds are required for skill activation. Once the skill is activated, the longer the contact, the longer the health and stamina drain. Daichi read the skills, and his eyes widened as he looked at the effects. I can permanently increase 2 of my stats by using this skill? Amazing. Even though there are some restrictions, the value of this skill far outweighs their demerits. I need to test this skill. I need to see their true potential. It looks like I'll have to prepare for the next dungeon soon. Agility stat has reached 300. The passive skill Swiftness has evolved to Shadow Speed. Hidden limitations placed on the skill due to the insufficient strength stat points have now been removed. New effects have been added. Daichi read the last part, and his suspicions were proven correct. The system said I could increase my speed to 5 times, but I was never able to achieve that speed. At best, I was able to increase my speed by 3 times. It seems my theory was correct. My body didn't have the strength to withstand those speeds, and thus, there were hidden limitations. But I wonder why the system didn't tell me about the restrictions placed. Question for another time, I guess. Daichi looked at the new effects of the evolved skill. Enhanced body part velocity. The ability to move body parts at extreme speeds in almost all directions, allowing the user to cover a wide range of motions quickly. A perfect skill to take the enemy by surprise or unleash unsuspecting fast attacks. This will definitely come in handy. After going through each of the blue boxes, Daichi opened his status page and looked at his current condition. Class Genin, ID 01259. Age 12. Title, Capable Child, Explorer, Prodigy, Beast Slayer, Dungeon Warrior, Executioner, Assassin, Mighty Healer, Slug Sanon's Apprentice, Master of the Elements, a Genius of the Continent. Level 51, 5225. HP, 27040, CP 8644224, SP 24570. Primary stats, Strength 300, Vitality 300, Dexterity 235, Agility 300, Intelligence 218, Chakra 500, Wisdom 214. Special stats, Sense 132, Stamina 242, Indomitable 37, Charisma 58, Persistence 35, Dignity 7, Luck 11. Stat points. Daichi looked at his stats and smiled. He leaned back against the tree and took in a deep breath of air and let it out. Strength invites challenges. I have no doubt that when canon starts, Orochimaru, Akatsuki, and others will come for me. Obito and Zetsu will take every factor into account, and I will no doubt be a new variable to them. Our clash is inevitable. The story only focused on a few enemies since it was about Naruto and Sasuke, but I doubt they are the only ones in the shadows. So the question is, who else will get in my way? Daichi looked at the clouds and relaxed in his spot. It won't matter. I won't allow myself to fall. Daichi stood in front of the Hokage and waited for his new mission. Since Kakashi is unavailable, you'll be working with another Genin team. I'll explain the mission details when they get here. It shouldn't be long now. Hiruzen said as he looked through the details in the scroll. A few seconds later, there was a knock on the door. Come in. The door opened, and Daichi saw Team Guy entering. Might Guy had a wide smile as he entered the room, and he was followed by his 3 students. Good morning, Lord Hokage. My youthful team is ready for our next mission. Guy greeted the Kage and then turned his attention to Daichi. Ah, young Daichi, you're here too. Where is Kakashi? At that moment, the Guy's students also looked at Daichi. Lee had a wide grin as he looked at his best friend, and Tenten greeted Daichi with a polite smile, while Neji didn't even bother looking his way. He stood stoic and kept his attention on the Kage of the village. Guy, right on time. I've given Kakashi an important task, and so he is unavailable at the moment. So for this mission, Daichi will be joining your team and will be under your care. Hiruzen said as he looked at the Jonin. Yosh, it will be my pleasure to have young Daichi on our team. Guy gave a thumbs up to the Genin gamer and stood in attention. Lee was extremely happy to be able to work with his friend. He went and stood near his friend. Oh, Daichi, our first mission together. This will be awesome. Daichi chuckled as he looked at his friend. That depends on the mission, Lee. What mission do you have for us, Lord Hokage? At Might Guy's question, the Kage gave a scroll to the green spandex-wearing Jonin. Hiruzen began explaining the mission. Now, this might be marked as a D-rank mission, but it is a very important one. There are apparently some parasitic organisms that got into the Great Southern Lake. They were most probably flushed here due to the recent unexpected rains we've been having. We suspect they are lamprey. Your mission is to eliminate them now before they have a chance to spawn and kill the fishes later. Tenten tilted her head and thought about the situation. Lamprey? Aren't those the fish that hook onto other fishes or something? It's going to be hard to get rid of all of them. Not to mention that if it's already at the point where the lamprey are high in numbers, where we're noticing the death and injuries on the population of fish, then it'll be a big problem if we're not thorough. Daichi gave his thoughts as well. He then looked at the Hokage and asked a question. If I'm not mistaken, then the Great Lake is one of the backup food supplies for the village, isn't it? Hiruzen nodded his head. Yes, it is. That's why, despite the mission being a low D rank, it has such great importance. We cannot afford to have that supply be destroyed by parasites. What about chemicals? What are they called? Ah, yes, lampricides. What about them? Guy asked the old leader. What's that, sensei? Lee asked at that moment. It was Hiruzen who answered Lee's question. There is a chemical called lampricide. It's a toxic chemical dangerous to lamprey, but harmless to most other aquatic species. The problem is, we have no shipment here in the village at the moment. Not in the quantities we need anyway. We'd have to ship it from the capital or coastal facilities that have access to the material. That will take time, which we do not have. Daichi crossed his arms as his mind went through the different scenarios. He went through different options, but one stood out to him. But for that, he needed to know the limits. Lord Hokage, what's the acceptable collateral damage? Daichi had a serious face as he looked at the Kage. The others became silent at Daichi's question. Hiruzen looked at the strongest genin in the room and sighed after a few seconds. He then answered the boy's question. Right now, we have an estimate of the edible fishes in the lake. If it comes down to it, then their population should not be reduced to less than 60% of their current number. Also, no permanent damages should be done to the lake itself. You must complete the mission with these parameters in mind. The Kage looked at everyone as he said those last words. A new quest appeared in front of Daichi. Quest created, wipe out the invasive species. Daichi looked at the mission details and accepted the quest. Yes, sir. Dismissed. The 4 genin and 1 jonin left the room. Guy looked at his students and the new addition to his team. This mission will be a tricky one, but not impossible. We will complete it with excellence and show everyone our blazing spirits. Yes, Guy-sensei, Lee shouted alongside his sensei. Now then. Guy leaned forward with his right hand extended straight. Oh, right. Lee extended his right hand and placed it on top of Guy's. The jonin then looked towards Tenten. Oh God, this is so embarrassing. The weapons specialist, after a few seconds, hesitatingly put her right hand on top of Lee's. Guy's attention then focused on the 2 remaining ninjas of their team. Neji looked like he swallowed a lemon, and Daichi had a twitch above his eyes. Daichi met the excited eyes of Lee and Guy and just sighed. He then glanced at Neji and just decided to go with the flow. Oh well, when in Rome. The young gamer reluctantly extended his arm and joined the others, and Neji soon followed. Ha ha ha! Yes! Onward with the power of youth! Attack! 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 Guy shouted with a wide grin. Yes, sensei! Attack! Lee joined his sensei with great enthusiasm. There were other ninjas walking by who looked at the 5. They chuckled when they saw Daichi, Neji, and Tenten's red faces. Let's go! With that, the team made their way to the Great Southern Lake. The 5 ninjas stood at the shore of the Great Lake. So, my dear genins, any ideas? Guy asked his students. I don't know much about lamprey, but aren't they eaten just like other fishes? There's probably a lot of information available about them. Maybe we could find a book that tells us their characteristics or how to catch them. Tenten gave her thoughts, but we don't know if they have started reproducing yet or what fishes they're feeding upon. Finding information on them is a good idea, but we don't have a lot of time to waste. Neji said as he looked at the giant body of water. Tenten, you're right about the lamprey being edible, but as Neji said, we don't have time to research the matter thoroughly. Guy said to his students. Lee looked at his new temporary teammate. What do you think, Daichi? Let me see what we're dealing with. Daichi said as he took a few steps on top of the lake. Neji narrowed his eyes at this. So he knows water walking. Not unexpected. Daichi created a shadow clone and then got down on one knee and placed a hand on the surface of the water. The other 4 people were paying close attention to his actions. A second later, several chakra strings came to life from the palm touching the surface of the water. The chakra threads rushed down and quickly caught 2 fishes. Daichi pulled back the chakra strings and looked at 2 captured fishes. He kept the native fish just below the surface of the water while he examined the intruder closely. Observe. This is a parasitic lamprey not native to the Land of Fire. They are an invasive species that migrate up the river to spawn. It is also sometimes referred to as the vampire fish. They have an eel-like body without paired fins. Its mouth is a jawless, round sucker-like and wider than the head, with sharp teeth arranged in concentric circular rows. An adult lamprey can reach up to 120 centimeters. "What are you thinking, young Daichi?" Guy asked the boy. "I'm curious to see their tolerance towards heat when compared to the other fishes here." Daichi gave his reply. "And how would you find that out?" questioned Tenten. At that, Daichi placed the struggling lamprey back underwater, and he slightly extended his chakra strings. Now both fish he caught were about half a meter under the surface of water. They were both struggling to get away, but were unable to break hold from Daichi's strings. The shadow clone Daichi also created 2 strings and had them form a loose coil around the 2 fishes. He made sure his strings didn't touch their bodies. Daichi changed the properties of the string to fire and began to heat up the water around the 2 fishes. But this was a slow process. He made sure to pay attention to the changes in the fish at each degree increase. Soon the lamprey started to struggle harder and after a few more seconds fell limp. Daichi stopped increasing the heat and looked at the other fish that was native to the Great Lake. It was struggling but still alive and relatively unharmed. Daichi memorized the amount of heat the water was exuding when the lamprey died, and now he had a plan. He just needs Guy's permission to execute it. He turned towards the Jonin and spoke. "It's just as I thought. Lamprey can't survive in hot water. They have very low tolerance for high temperatures in water. I'm sure they can't even tolerate tropical waters. But the native fishes, on the other hand, are hardy and can tolerate temperature fluctuations and heat. But even if that's true, if we heat the lake then many native fishes will die," Lee said, trying to think of a different way. "Yes, it's why I asked the Hokage about collateral damage. Sometimes sacrificing the few is necessary for the good of the many. I know it's not a pretty concept, but..." Daichi didn't say anything anymore and just looked at his temporary instructor. Guy sighed and spoke with a rare, serious face. "It's true. Sometimes those measures are necessary, but not done lightly." He looked at Daichi and nodded his head, giving the boy permission to move forward with his plan. But there were certain preparations that needed to be made first. Daichi got up and looked at the Great Lake. At that moment, he was seeing the village in place of the water and the Uchiha clan as the lamprey, sacrificing the few to save the many. But still, people aren't fishes. It's not a decision that can be made when it comes to humans. Was there really no other way? Itachi? Author's note. This mission will be completed in the next chapter and a new B-rank mission will begin. I know it might seem like I'm delaying canon and writing filler chapters, but that is not the case. I do want to start canon as soon as possible, but I also want to write some original mission arcs, and not bore you guys with the variations of the same missions you've all probably read 100 or 1,000 times already. I hope you're enjoying the variety of tasks I'm coming up with for Daichi. Please feel free to share your thoughts on the missions I'm coming up with. Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 195. First B-rank mission, Chapter 195 of the Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. Guy stood with his arms crossed and had his eyes on Daichi. He had an unusually serious expression as he looked at the boy. The fact that he asked the Hokage about collateral damages, he knew this was most likely the best option out of all the ones, the life of few for the safety of many. But will he make such a choice when it comes to other people? Guy's eyes then slowly drifted to his most precious student, Lee. As he looked at the boy and thought about all the things Lee said about his friend, the concerns Guy had vanished and his face softened. No, Daichi knows the difference. He's a good kid. His friendship with Lee is proof of that. Putting on a big smile, Guy stepped forward and spoke. Daichi, Do you have a plan on solving this situation? At that, the young gamer nodded his head. Yes. There are a few ways we can go about this. We can drain the pond, capture all the native fishes, and safely store them. Then kill all the lampreys and look for any eggs that they might have laid and kill them too. Then refill the pond and bring the fishes back inside. But that will take time and lots of resources, Tenten said as she thought about the logistics of such a plan. Daichi nodded his head, agreeing with her. Yes, it is an option, but not the best plan. The fastest way to solve this is to heat the lake to a certain temperature that kills the eggs and larvae of the lamprey and not harm the other fishes. Guy nodded his head and stepped forward. He's right. Sometimes a problem can be solved through careful planning, clever consideration, through patience, or with brute force. But for delicate matters like this, one needs to apply brute force alongside a clever plan to make it a success. I have an idea and I need Neji's assistance, Daichi said as he looked at the Jonin and then to the Hyuga in the group. Guy beamed and gave a thumbs up. All right, let's hear your plan. Neji, are you ready? The Hyuga merely nodded his head and paid attention to the new teammate. Lee and Tenten also paid attention and wanted to know how they could help out. Daichi began laying out his plan. Neji, I need you to use your Byakugan and tell me the location of the fishes native to these waters. I'll create clones and capture them with my chakra strings and keep them at a safe distance. I know we won't be able to get everything, but we can significantly reduce the damage to their population if we're careful and thorough. Daichi then turned his attention to Lee and Tenten. Once I heat up the lake, you two will need to take the fishing net and scoop up the remains from the pond so that the corpses don't contaminate the water. 2 people per net. Lee looked a bit unsure at that moment since he didn't know water walking, and Daichi immediately understood the problem. Lee, you can hold the net from the shore and cover the perimeter of the pond. Tenten can cover the parts nearer the center. Not a bad plan, Daichi, Guy said with a smile. Daichi nodded and created over 24 shadow clones. Neji, Tenten were shocked to see the solid clones. Guy grinned as he looked at the number of clones that appeared. 27 shadow clones, and he doesn't even look winded. His chakra is far bigger than those his age. Neji made the hand seal and activated his Kekkei Genkai. The moment he did, he was shocked to see how much chakra Daichi had. He has this much chakra? His reserves are even greater than Lord Hiyashi. The shadow clones spread out all over the lake and stood in attention. Each one of them had chakra strings coming from their hands. With his heightened senses, Daichi sensed most of the creatures swimming under the lake. The chakra strings immediately moved and started to attach to their targets. I've only seen the puppet brigade from the Sand Village that had such flawless mastery of chakra strings, but I doubt even they could change the nature of their strings so easily. His skills are truly vast. Guy thought as he looked at how Daichi used his energy threads. Neji, call out if you see the fishes I miss, or the ones deep in the lake. Byakugan. The Hyuga nodded and activated his special eyes. Approximately 380 feet below you, 4 of them. Daichi quickly expanded his senses and captured the fishes. The one you caught just now is a lamprey. Neji addressed a clone. The shadow clone nodded and heated the string that had caught the parasite fish. His clones were also doing their best, and with Neji guiding them, the work was done quickly. Over half an hour, and almost all the sea creatures in the lake were entangled in Daichi's strings. The shadow clones moved towards the edge of the lake with their targets while the real Daichi moved to the center. He focused on his chakra and blurred through a series of seals. Inhaling a deep breath of air and changing its properties, Daichi exhaled a stream of fire into the water. Steam erupted almost immediately as the flames touched the lake's surface. Daichi kept up the stream of fire, and soon the lake started heating up. His delicate senses allowed him to assess the temperature of the lake, while his clones kept the native fishes as cool as possible by changing the properties and nature of their chakra strings. Soon the entire pond started producing small bubbles and steam. At that moment, Daichi stopped using the jutsu and took a deep breath of air. The lamprey larvae should be dead, and the adults should be dying right now. We need to scoop up the remains before they contaminate the water, Daichi said as he looked at the team. Yosh. Well done, Daichi. You did your part. Now it's our turn. Let's show him our burning passion. Guy shouted with a grin, and they got to work. It wasn't an easy task. The team spent almost all day hauling out fish, checking for parasites, and then tossing the fish back. They also had to scoop up the remains of the dead fish as well. It was tedious, physically exhausting work. Thankfully, Guy's team and Daichi were used to such tasks. As Daichi suspected, some native fishes did not survive and were killed by the heat. "What's the damage, Neji?" Guy asked. The Hyuga Genin used his eyes to check the lake, and soon came to a conclusion. Based on my estimates, more than 85% of the native fishes survived with no visible wounds, and all the lampreys seem to have been killed. Might Guy beamed hearing that. "Excellent work. Well done, all of you. You know we should take the dead fish to the market and give them to the hungry. That way there won't be any waste. What do you think?" Tenten said, looking at her sensei. "That's a wonderful idea, Tenten." Lee praised his teammate with a big smile. "Yes, a most excellent idea, dear Tenten. As soon as we're done here, we'll head to the market. Others should benefit from this work, and the fish is already cooked." The Jonin agreed and made his decision. The team kept up their work for hours, and by evening, their work was completed. "Oh, God, I need a shower." Tenten spoke as she cleaned her hands. Lee smelled himself and was taken back. You have a point. A bath does sound nice." All of them were covered in dirt, grim and smelled horrible. At that moment, an Anbu appeared near the team, startling the three Genins. Only Daichi and Guy sensed the presence of the new ninja before he appeared. The Anbu looked directly at Daichi and spoke. "Daichi Hekima, please clean yourself up quickly and head to the Hokage's office. There is an emergency." Everyone was surprised and shocked. Guy narrowed his eyes and looked at the Anbu. "Did something happen?" "There has been an incident at the capital. The Hokage has asked for Daichi's presence. That is all I can say." The stoic ninja replied. The Jonin nodded his head. "I understand." He turned to the temporary addition to the team. "Daichi, you're dismissed. Get cleaned up quickly and get to the tower. You shouldn't keep Lord Hokage waiting." Daichi nodded and turned towards the messenger. "Please inform Lord Hokage that I'll be there shortly." The Anbu nodded and vanished from his spot. Daichi turned to the other and waved them goodbye. Next second, he vanished with the body flicker jutsu. The gamer ninja quickly reached his home and soon got himself in a presentable state. After taking a shower and putting on some new gear, Daichi made his way to the Hokage Tower. I wonder what this is about? An emergency at the capital? Could it be about Jin? Or maybe something to do with the Phantom Thief? He didn't know what happened, but he would face whatever it was without flinching. Hokage Tower. A short while ago, the Hokage was going through important mission documents when his secretary came into the room. "Lord Hokage, Yondu is here from the capital. He has requested a meeting, said it was an emergency." The assistant said, conveying the urgency of the situation. Hiruzen was startled hearing that. "Yondu? He's the messenger of the royal court. If he's here, then something serious must have happened." "Send him in." The secretary nodded, and a few moments later a middle-aged man with green eyes and light-shaded red hair entered the room. He bowed before the Hokage and then straightened. "Greetings, Lord Hokage." His voice was smooth and pleasant to the ears. Hiruzen nodded. "Welcome to the Leaf Village, Yondu. Please sit. What brings you here?" Yondu took a chair and spoke. "I will get straight to the point since time is a precious factor. The nephew of the third minister was poisoned less than 12 hours ago." The Hokage's eyes widened. Even though it was the nephew of the third minister, Ryuga will definitely consider this an attack on the royal court, and thus a personal attack on him. But that still doesn't explain why Yondu is here. There are capable medics in the capital. So why would he come here? Unless... Hiruzen could make a guess as to why the man was here, but didn't say anything in case he was wrong. Yondu continued. "The boy is dying. The best medics at the capital couldn't find out what's wrong with him, or what poison was used. But they were able to make an estimate based on the speed of the poison's progression. Based on his bodily functions, they estimate he has about 7 or 8 hours from now to live. We've searched for Lady Tsunade. She visited the capital a few weeks ago, but soon left. We can't locate her at the moment, and won't be able to until it's too late." Hiruzen's suspicion was proven correct. So, you're here for her student, Daichi Hakima, I presume? Yes. The messenger from the royal court nodded his head. Lord Taji Maima has requested the boy's aid and has given the mission. This will be marked as a B rank due to its high priority. Is the boy here in the village? Yondu knew that if Daichi was away outside the village, the chances of the minister's nephew dying would increase to 100%. And the situation would become much worse. Daichi is here. He is currently on a D-rank mission. I will summon him immediately. Hiruzen replied and made a gesture with his hand. An Anbu quickly appeared kneeling. Find Daichi and tell him to report to me at once. Nothing else was said, and the Anbu nodded and vanished in silence. Hiruzen then turned his attention back to Yondu. Tell me about the situation. How did this happen? Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 196. Save the Nephew of the Minister. Chapter 196 of The Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. I see. So that's how it is. If he dies, then... Hiruzen massaged the bridge of his nose as his mind went through the situation. Yes. Not only will the minister be furious, but Lord Ryuga will also be very unhappy. Until the culprit is found, there will be some chaos. Yondu knew the temperament of the Fire Lord better than most. If the matter is not resolved soon, harsh actions will be taken that could cause problems for everyone. The first thing to do is save Leorio's life. And the only people who could do that are Tsunade and Daichi. And since Tsunade is nowhere to be found, I have no choice but to send Daichi. But with all the threats eyeing him, I can't send him alone. I can't recall Kakashi. He is in the middle of his delicate training. I'll have to assign someone else. Hiruzen knew that sending Daichi alone was not an option, no matter how strong the boy was. At that moment, an idea suddenly sparked in his head. That will work. If they can work together, then a couple of my problems will be solved. At that moment, the Kage sensed the presence of the genin outside his office. Daichi reached the Hokage's office and was quickly let in. Lord Hokage. He greeted the leader of the village, and then glanced at the other person present in the room. Daichi, this is Yondu. He is a member of the Fire Daimyo's royal court. Hiruzen introduced the man to the genin. Daichi immediately used Observe, skill on the man, and made an analysis of the person. Level 68. 47 years old. His agility and stamina are high for his level, but other than that, all his stats seem normal. A messenger and close personal friend of the daimyo. Unmarried. Smart and capable of fighting even Jonin-level ninjas. It only took a few seconds for Daichi to have a rough understanding and measure of Yondu's background, strength, and abilities. It is an honor to meet you, sir. He gave a short bow and greeted the elder man. There is a matter of grave importance that requires your attention at the capital. Hiruzen spoke, drawing Daichi's attention. This will be a B-rank mission, and you are to leave for the capital immediately. A B-rank? This is indeed serious. The boy nodded and stood in attention. Will Kakashi-sensei be coming? The Hokage shook his head, indicating the absence of the Sharingan ninja. Kakashi will be unavailable, but Genma here will join you. At that moment, the Hokage's elite guard and special jonin Genma Shiranui appeared. Hey! Daichi immediately used the Observe skill again on the new target. Genma Shi5, age 27 HP 9860 CP, 111 Ford 25 affiliation, Leaf Village. Genma Shiranui is the son of late Hirata Shiranui. He is a special jonin of the Leaf Village and an elite bodyguard to the Hokage. Became a genin at the age of 10 and was teammates of Might Guy and Abisu under the jonin Choza Akimichi. He is a calm, collected individual and a veteran shinobi with a wide variety of skills. Proficient in ninjutsu, capable in taijutsu and genjutsu. Primary chakra nature is fire. STR 186, AGI 198, INTI 67. The physical stats may be subjected to change if chakra or technique is applied. The young gamer quickly read the information his system showed. Genma Shiranui. There wasn't much about him in canon other than the small bits shown. I guess I'll know more about him during this mission. You will be working under Genma for the duration of this mission. Hiruzen relayed his message. At that moment, the second chain quest appeared in front of the boy. Chain quest initiated. Quest created. Save the nephew of the minister. An unknown party has poisoned the nephew of the third minister of the fire capital. He only has a few hours left to live. Head to the capital and save his life. Conditions: stabilize his condition and prolong his life. Rewards: 12,000 XP, +1 level in health manipulation, +1 wisdom stat, +1 intelligence stat. Reputation increases with the client. Reputation massively increased with Genma Shirunao, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and people in Fire Capital. Failure. Failure to complete the quest. Save the nephew of the minister. Reputation decreases with everyone. Possible wrath of the Fire Daimyo. Another chain quest? Looks like this will be a tricky mission. Having absolute faith in his medical skills, Daichi mentally accepted the quest. You have accepted the first quest. The Hokage spoke at that moment. Since this is a time-sensitive issue, Yondu will explain the details of the mission to you on the way. Daichi nodded, and soon Genma, Yondu, and Daichi were on their way to the capital. It was evening around 6 p.m. 3 people swiftly moved through the forest in the Fire Country and were making their way to the capital. Daichi, you've spent some time in the capital. What do you know about the third minister? Yondu asked the boy as he jumped to another tree. Daichi recalled the information he read and quickly replied. The third minister is Lord Taji Maima. He is in charge of public relations and overseeing the various businesses in the capital and surrounding towns. Yes, there are 3 ministers overseeing various aspects of the government in Fire Country, and Lord Taji Maima is a very important person, so this must be solved quickly. And moreover, an attack against his family is considered an attack against the daimyo itself. The genin nodded his head as heard that. I understand the seriousness of the situation. Can you tell me more about the minister? You said his nephew lives with him? What about his parents? Yondu was silent for a few moments, and just when Daichi thought he wouldn't answer, Yondu spoke. Lord Taji and his wife Fuyi had a son, and Lord Taji had a twin brother named Genji. Genji also had a son named Leorio Maima. Both Leorio and Lord Taji's son were around the same age. Many years ago he lost his son, his brother, and sister-in-law in an unfortunate accident. Lord Taji and Fuyi lost their son and Leorio, his parents. The third minister adopted and raised the boy, didn't he? Genma said, as it was easy to draw that conclusion from the events. Yondu nodded his head. Yes, it took a long time, but they were able to heal and move past the tragedy. But now, if Lord Taji loses Leorio as well, I will do everything in power to not let that happen. Yondu looked at the genin's serious expression and nodded. If there is anyone who can save him and avert a crisis, it's you. Please tell me everything that's happened to Leorio. Daichi wanted to know as much information as he could to prepare and have an idea as to what he was walking into. Yondu recalled the memories and began. Everything was fine yesterday when Leorio went to bed. He was healthy without any problems. But early this morning, the guard outside his room started hearing loud coughs and painful shouts. He burst into the room and saw Leorio sweating heavily, breathing hard and clutching his chest in pain. The family medics did a thorough examination and couldn't find what's wrong with him, and he was soon brought to the hospital. I see. I'm guessing Dr. Karuizawa examined his condition. Indeed. He, along with several competent other medics, ran all sorts of tests, but none of them could find the cause of his illness, let alone a cure. What they did find is that he was poisoned and how much time he has left before death. The medics said that based on the speed of his organs deteriorating functions, he has only a few hours from now. Have you caught the person who poisoned him? The messenger from the capital shook his head to Genma's question. An investigation is underway, but nothing at the moment. At least, I haven't heard anything before I left, and the guards stationed at Lord Taji's mansion didn't sense any intruders. It became quiet, and Daichi took another look at the new quest. It says, stabilize his condition and prolong his life, not cure or save him. That's strange. Does that mean saving his life is impossible? Or will it come in another quest? I'll only be able to know more after I examine the guy. This brings another question that's been on my mind for some time. Does the system know the future and my future actions? Is my gamer system sentient? Daichi recalled the system message that appeared when he first woke up in this world. Memories of the previous life of your soul, which were locked, have now been unlocked. Memories of your current life and your unlocked ones are being merged. Merging complete. Good luck, player. System Administrator. Till a few years ago, I thought it was from some deity who sent my soul here. But now, is there someone who is controlling the system? An uncomfortable and somewhat frightening thought came to Daichi's mind. Am I someone's puppet? Daichi took a few deep breaths of air and calmed his heart. I will have to look into this, but for now, just need to focus on becoming stronger. Are you all right, Daichi? You look a little pale. The Jonin Genma's voice brought Daichi out of his thoughts. I'm fine, just thinking about the many possibilities of our actions. Genma raised an eyebrow, hearing the vague reply. At that moment, Daichi received a new system message. Quest, wipe out the invasive species completed. Rewards, 8,000 XP, 1,200 XP. Reputation increases with Team Guy and the Hokage. Reputation increases with people of the Leaf Village. So Guy must have submitted the mission report. Good. Only 16,168 XP to the next level. In a better mood than before, Daichi made his way to his destination. The three people were moving much faster than even ordinary ninjas. Yondu expected the fast pace from the Jonin accompanying him, but Daichi keeping up without showing any strain was a surprise to the man. So his stamina and speed are also above normal. A very talented child indeed. Yondu thought as they were getting closer to the fire capital city. The three people soon made it to the hospital and Dr. Karuizawa greeted them. He was about to bring them to where Leorio was situated, but at that moment several people came forward. Two in particular had their focus on Daichi. The young genin immediately used Observe and found out who they were. The third minister and his wife, and the rest are his personal guards. Lord Taji Maima, the third minister of the fire capital, looked at the messenger of the royal court. Thank you for bringing him so quickly, Yondu. Of course, Lord Taji. The man bowed and replied. He then turned to Daichi and Genma and introduced them. This is Lord Taji Maima, the third minister of his capital, and his wife, Fui Maima. Taji had a somber expression while his wife silently looked at the genin. I have heard a lot about you, Daichi Hekima. Your medical skills are almost equal to those of Lady Tsunade. You're our last chance. Can I put my faith in you? The minister looked at the boy with hope in his eyes. Daichi was silent for a few seconds and then replied in a careful tone. I will do my best. But forgive me, Lord Taji. I cannot say anything more until I see my patient. The minister nodded in understanding and stepped aside. Karuizawa led them deeper into the hospital building. Daichi and Genma passed by many guards who were wearing imperial armor. Just as I expected. Since they don't know if the poison is contagious or not, they're keeping him in an isolation chamber. Daichi thought as he looked around. Dr. Karuizawa gave Daichi a detailed file and spoke. This is everything we have found about his condition. Daichi quickly went through the pages and committed all the information to memory. He reached the room where the nephew was being kept. I'll take it from here. I'll go in alone and examine him. Having said his piece, the Jonin medic ninja quickly put on the hazmat suit and entered the room. He saw a man in his 20s unconscious on the medical bed, breathing through a tube with several wires connected to him that were monitoring his vitals. All right, let's see what I got. Author's note. 2 things. 1. I apologize for the delay with this, but I was sick and needed some bed rest. Still a little under the weather. Got COVID again, so that sucks. Anyway, stay safe, you guys. 2. Daichi isn't anyone's puppet. The answers to the system will only appear near the end of the story. Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 197. Quest failed. Chapter 197 of The Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. Fire Capital. A few hours before Daichi reached the capital, a man in a well-dressed suit was standing on his balcony looking at the night sky. He had a melancholic expression as he looked at the stars. Soon, you two... I'll see both of you very soon. I'll finally be with you. At that moment, another person came and stood behind him. Sir, I have news. It seems Yondu from the royal court has gone to the Leaf Village. Rumor at the hospital is that he is going to bring Daichi Hekima, the student of the Sannin and medic ninja Lady Tsunade, here to heal Leorio. The man merely scoffed as he heard that. Just as we expected. But at this late stage, it won't matter. There won't be anything he can do to save him. This poison was created by that man. It's not something a child can. The man suddenly started violently coughing into his hand. There was blood on his palms. "My lord, here." The servant standing behind gave the well-dressed man a small piece of cloth to wipe off the blood. "Thank you, Junichiro. It doesn't matter who Yondu brings." The man took another gulp of air and continued, "Unless he brings Tsunade herself, there is no way to save Leorio from death, and I made sure to put this plan in motion now when she was out of the country. But still, my lord, the head of the hospital believes the boy can save his life. He is not someone who speaks empty words." The servant, now identified as Junichiro, spoke. "Is that so? Well then, why don't you pay the hospital a visit and stick around? Find out what happens and report back to me." Junichiro bowed as he heard his master's order. "Yes, Lord Jadayu." He vanished from his spot, leaving the sick man alone on his balcony. "Daichi Hekima, let's see if you can do the impossible?" Daichi had entered the isolation room and several people were waiting outside in anxiety. As the minister and his wife waited for the good news, another young woman soon came near them. "I heard he's here, so I came as quickly as I could." The young woman spoke softly to Lady Fui. "Yes, he's inside healing Leorio. He is our last hope." Taji replied with a small smile as he looked at the girl. "But can he really do it? I heard he's only 12 years old." "You needn't worry about that, Lady Junko. Right now, Daichi is the best medic in this hospital. If there is anyone who can save your fiancé, it's him. Lady Tsunade taught her students well." It was Dr. Karuizawa who spoke these words. He had faith in the boy's skills. Genmas, who stood leaning against the wall, had a smirk as he heard the doctor. His opinion of the boy was increasing day by day. "Looks like the kid has a fan. Daichi's talents are truly incredible, to be compared to someone as accomplished as Lady Tsunade herself at such a young age." Yondu came near the Maima family and spoke. "I understand your fears, but for now all we can do is wait and pray." The group nodded and waited. More than 2 hours passed by with no news. Dr. Karuizawa was slightly tense. Despite his strong faith in the boy, the person who was lying in critical state was the nephew of the minister. If anything happened, he didn't even want to think of the consequences he would face. "Come on. Only you can save his life." The group patiently waited, and after about half an hour more, they saw the boy coming out of the room. Daichi walked out of the isolation room and looked at the people present. There was the third minister and his wife, a young woman who Daichi quickly used. "Observe." And identified as Leorio's fiancé Junko Sakari, the messenger of the royal court Yondu, head of the Fire Capital Hospital, Dr. Karuizawa, his temporary Jonin instructor Genma Shiranui, and several guards of the Maima family. They all had their eyes on him, with the Maima family having great hope in their eyes. But that hope was quickly vanishing as they looked at the dark, somber expression on Daichi's face. Daichi closed his eyes and took a deep breath and slowly let it out. He looked at the 3D minister and his family members as they came near them. Dr. Karuizawa frowned as he looked at Daichi's face. "Don't tell me you failed. Was there nothing that could have been done?" With a sad and soft tone, Daichi spoke. "I'm sorry, sir. I was too late to save him." "No, that can't be." Leorio's fiancé and Lady Fui burst into tears while the minister just stood still, trying to process the information. "Reputation massively decreases with Taji and Fuinima." Yondu sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose as he heard this. "Did we overestimate the boy's skills? Or was it too late to save him when we got here? Now this situation is going to escalate. Lord Ryuga will be angry, and that's not mentioning what Lord Taji will do." The messenger looked at the grieving man and frowned. "Reputation decreases with Yondu. How? How could this happen? Was there nothing you could do?" he asked the boy in a shaky tone. "Reputation massively decreases with Tadashi and other guards. I did everything I could, but the poison was too strong and I got here too late." Daichi replied in a soft tone. Genma, who stood against the wall, sighed. "It seems we indeed reached here too late." Still, with everything I heard about you, I thought you would be able to pull some kind of miracle. But it looks like not even the best medic can save everyone. The death of Lady Tsunade's fiancé is proof of that. Reputation slightly decreases with Genma-shin. Reputation slightly decreases with Dr. Karuizawa. Aren't you the student of the greatest medic in the world? How could you not save him? It was Leorio's fiancé who shouted this question angrily at him. Reputation massively decreases with Junko Sakari. Genma was about to step forward and defend his ward, but Daichi slightly raised his hand, stopping the man. I'm sorry. There are some things even I'm not capable of doing. See? Can we see him? Tears were flowing down Lady Fuyu's cheeks as she was coming to terms with the death of her adopted child. Yes. Of course, answered Daichi. The young medic ninja then turned his attention to the third minister. Lord Taji, I need to speak with you along with Dr. Karuizawa, Lord Yondu, and you too, Genma-sensei. The poison isn't contagious, but there is something you should know about it. Daichi said, pointing to the room Leorio was in. The people who Daichi called out glanced at each other, but followed after the boy into the room without question. As the group of 7 walked into the room, the Maima family guards stood in silence. They had great fondness for their young lord, and his passing away had struck them all, especially one in particular. The guard Tadashi tightened his fist and clenched his jaws in anger and sadness. Damn it! How could I let someone poison Lord Leorio? How did they escape me? He looked at the closed entrance of the room Leorio was in. Daichi Hekima, I thought you were some great medic ninja, but it looks like you're just another overhyped useless brat. The guards waited for about 10 minutes before everyone started coming out of the room. Lord Taji had an unreadable face as he looked at his guards. To think there could be a traitor among my guards. He said it was unlikely, but still, this is a risk that's too big to take. Lord Taji looked at the man that was stationed outside Leorio's room last night. Tadashi, go with the Leaf Ninjas and assist in their investigation. The guards all heard the sadness in Taji's voice. Yes, my lord. Hiromichi. Yes, sir. Another guard answered and straightened. Taji was silent for a few moments and then in a small voice gave the order. Make the funeral arrangements. Yes, sir. The rest of you, return to your posts. Everyone began leaving, and Dr. Karuizawa headed to the medic station. I have strict orders from the minister not to disturb the body. No one is allowed to go inside the room. Is that clear? Yes, sir. Sir, did that mean Daichi failed? Is Lord Leorio? A medic asked, and the head doctor sighed. Yes, I'm afraid so. And we still haven't found what poison was used. So for the moment, Daichi will be using the lab in Sector 3. Do not disturb him. The fact that Daichi failed was certainly news to everyone. And before long, the death of the minister's son quietly spread throughout the hospital. A man who was paying close attention to the chatter in his surroundings suddenly focused on a new conversation happening. He was sitting in a corner of the room, wearing ordinary clothes. Yes, it's true. Daichi couldn't save his life. The minister's son is dead. The guards stationed around the room all left. I can't believe it. I thought for sure he could cure the poison in time. That's the thing. They couldn't even find what poison was used. Daichi is working on identifying it now. The man smirked as he heard the news. He got up from his seat and slowly made his exit without anyone noticing. He made sure no one was following him and quickly made his way to his master. It worked, master. The minister's son is dead. Yes. I'd expect no less. Koof, from the poison made by Sasori of the Red Sand. Even Tsunade's apprentice couldn't save his life. Now, on to the next part of my plan. The sickly man turned towards his aide. I know you're not looking forward to what comes next, Junichiro. No, Master Jediyu, but I will endeavor. You will be fine. You will find a new purpose. My death will set you free. The well-dressed man slowly walked towards his kneeling servant and placed a hand on his shoulder. To be free? I never considered this as an imprisonment, Master. It was my choice to serve you. Junichiro replied with small tears rolling down his eyes. His master didn't say a word and just looked up at the night sky. Tadashi, Genma, and Daichi were in front of Leorio's bedroom. Daichi had used Observe skill to see if Tadashi was a possible enemy, but the information he was shown told Daichi that Tadashi was a loyal guard. A sensory ninja, huh? To escape his senses, this culprit must have some serious stealth skill. It's also a good thing the isolation ward had chakra-blocking seals. Tadashi looked at the two leaf ninjas with a stony expression. He was angry at Daichi for his failure to save Leorio, and even more at himself for failure to protect his ward. But he decided to cooperate with the ninjas and find the people responsible for his young lord's death. Did you sense any suspicious movement around Leorio during these last few days? No. Did you see or hear anything unusual yesterday? Genma asked the guard. No, wait. Genma narrowed his eyes as he looked at the guard. Tadashi thought about the strange thing that happened and decided to tell the ninjas. Last night, as I was standing guard, there was a sudden burst of light coming from Leorio's room. It was only there for a split second before it disappeared. I only saw the light because I was standing near the door and saw the split-second flash coming from below the door. Did you go and check the room? No. I quickly went into sensory mode to check if there were any intruders, but I didn't sense anyone or anything abnormal. And I felt Leorio's chakra. He was sleeping without any problems. I figured it might have been some tricks my mind was playing on me. So I didn't give it much thought, but now... We'll need to check the room. Please stay here. Genma gave the order, and both he and his ward entered the room. It was a spacious room with one open window and a king-size bed in the middle. The room was on the 3rd floor of the Maima mansion. The two ninjas began examining the room, with Genma taking a look at the area near the window and Daichi examining the bed to see if he could find any foreign particles. Time went by, and they couldn't find anything yet. As Daichi inspected the wooden structure and the mattress upon it, he saw something strange. Hey, Genma-sensei. What do you make of this? The special Jonin came over and looked to where Daichi was pointing. He narrowed his eyes and concentrated. A few moments later, he saw it too. On the wooden headboard in the center, there was an almost imperceptible, lightly burned area in the shape of a square. It was almost impossible to notice with a normal eye and could be easily mistaken as part of the wooden design of the bed. That's odd. What is that? Daichi took a closer look and several seconds later replied, Whatever it is, that's not part of the design. It's too regular. It's a square shape burned approximately 10 centimeters in length. Daichi leaned closer and took a few sniffs. He did a double take and took another whiff of the burned area. I think I know how Leorio was infected. Call the guard. Genma raised an eyebrow and looked at Daichi in silence for a few seconds and then decided to do as the kid said. He called Tadashi inside and the two of them waited for Daichi's explanation. Daichi looked at the guard who just stood in silence. I was under the impression that the culprit came here last night, slipped through all the guards and security, poisoned the minister's son, and left without anyone noticing. That's not the case. Tadashi was surprised to hear that. What? But then how did he? You said you saw a bright flash of light, just for a split second. Yeah. Your eyes weren't playing tricks on you. You did see it. More precisely, what you saw was evidence being destroyed. What are you talking about, Daichi? What did you figure out? Genma was eager to know the truth behind the case. Flash paper. When it burns, it does so very quickly, and it leaves no smoke and no residue. Tadashi was shocked. Flash paper? The genin nodded. Yes. Flash paper, or nitrocellulose. It's created by mixing paper or cellulose with equal portions of nitric acid and sulfuric acid. The sulfuric acid converts nitric acid into nitronium ions that easily makes nitrogenated cellulose, also known as flash paper. When activated, it generates an exothermic combustion reaction that releases bright light and converts into carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and water vapor. All of them are gases and leave no ash residue. But it's not perfect. Someone with a keen Inuzuka-level nose can find the small residue if they know where to look for it. I see. That explains the light. But that still doesn't explain the poison. Tadashi questioned. My guess is the flash paper was also the delivery method. The toxin that infected Leorio was in gaseous form, so there must have been a seal on that paper that released the poison a few hours into the night, right on top of the sleeping Leorio's face. And the moment it did its job, the whole paper burned, leaving almost nothing that could be traced. The eyes of the two adults widened. Wait a minute, you're saying... Daichi nodded his head in affirmation. Yes, this paper must have been placed here hours before last night. There are two ways that could have happened. Someone inside these walls placed it here. Tadashi clenched his fists at the thought of a traitor. Or the culprit most probably infiltrated this place when it had the least guards and placed the paper here. Daichi finished. I see. Genma was silent for a while and thought about his next move. Several moments later, he turned to his ward. Daichi, why don't you get some rest? You've had a long day. I'll take it from here. Wait, I can help. The gamer ninja wanted to help so that he could make sure the quest was completed. Genma shook his head from side to side. You've done plenty to help, kid. Right now, based on everything you've told me, I have an idea as to who could make something like this. I'm gonna report my findings and then get whoever did this. Don't worry. You can join the fun after you've had a good long rest. Genma came near Daichi and gave him a piece of paper with an address in it. We'll be staying there for the duration of our mission, courtesy of Lord Taji. Go there and get some sleep. We will definitely need your help tomorrow. Daichi wanted to protest, but he decided to go along with his temporary Jonin instructor. Bidding farewell, Daichi quickly made his way to his quarters. It was located in one of the best inns in the area. The room was far better than any he stayed in till now. This isn't half bad. I guess a good night's sleep won't be a bad thing. Daichi closed his eyes and drifted off into dream world. Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 198. Interrogation Chapter 198 of the Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. It was early morning with the sun slowly making its way over the horizon. Daichi got up, did some light exercises, and got ready for his day. At that moment, Genma came into the room and greeted his ward. Good morning. Sleep well? Yeah, it was all right. So any new developments? You said you had an idea as to who made the seal. The special Jonin nodded. Yes. There is a ninja who wasn't all that good when it came to the ninja arts, but he had decent skills in sealing. He was from one of the smaller villages surrounding the borders of the Fire Country. About 2 decades ago, he left his village and became sort of a freelancer. A missing nin? Why hasn't he been hunted down by now? Well, he left his village on good terms, and he helped us in some small but meaningful ways during the Third War. The threat he posed was minimal, and since he hadn't committed any crimes and helped us when we asked, he wasn't placed in the bingo books. Last I heard, he's a freelancer working near the Fire Country. What makes you so sure that he's our guy? Well, aside from being an excellent seal master, he's also a good chemist, Genma said with a grin. If I had to make a bet, I'd say that flash paper was his work. So assuming you're right, do you think he could be the person who planted it here? Genma shook his head negatively. No, he's a contractor. He just makes what he's commissioned, and he always made it a point not to target anyone in the Fire Country. That's a surefire way to write your own death sentence. Now, he may not have been the one to place it here, but he did create the seal. So the shinobi stationed here will bring him in for interrogation? Yes. I gave the information to the necessary people. They'll find him. He's our best lead, so all we can do is wait. Genma then asked something that's been on his mind. Yesterday, you said you needed a sample of the original thing to find a cure. Is this poison really that complex? Well, if this were a poison that affected everyone it came in contact with, then regardless of how complex its chemical makeup was or what compounds were used, I could easily come up with a counter-agent. Genma nodded as he paid close attention. And you said the poison used on Leorio was a custom-built one specific to his DNA. Daichi nodded his head. Yes. If I had Leorio's uncontaminated blood sample, I could have reverse-engineered the poison and then created a cure. But since we don't have that, we need the original sample of the toxin or something close to it. And there's no other way to create a cure? Well, there is. It's just that it'll take time. I'd need 3 or 4 days at least. The special Jonin ninja sighed and sat on one of the chairs. And that's time we don't have. The genin sat down opposite and both shinobi were silent. A few moments later, Daichi broke the silence. What about the spy in Lord Taji's mansion? An investigation is currently underway. We don't even know if there is a spy, so everyone is under scrutiny save for a few people. So far, we haven't found anyone suspicious. A request for a Yamanaka clan ninja is already sent to the village. Genma replied. Daichi nodded. Hey, Sensei, when they begin interrogating that chemist guy, I should be there. Genma raised an eyebrow at that strange request. Why? Lady Tsunade taught me several things. How to check someone's vitals and spot when they are lying was one of the many lessons she imparted on me. We'll be able to move much faster with our investigation if we could get our answers quicker. The special Jonin closed his eyes and sighed. Several seconds later, he opened his eyes and gave a small nod. Hope this kid's ready to see the ugly side of shinobi life. Daichi leaned back in his chair and thought about what his shadow clones were up to. One of them is with him, and the other is in the lab analyzing the blood sample. Since they haven't popped, I guess there hasn't been any new developments. Guess all I can do is wait. Genma leaned back into his chair and closed his eyes. He had been awake all night and was tired. Daichi decided to meditate and wait for news from the guards. Time went by, and a couple hours after noon, a ninja came to them with a scroll. Genma took the sealed scroll and looked at the information written inside. They found him. He's here. Well, let's not waste any time. Daichi got up from his spot, and the two ninjas quickly made their way to where the suspect was being kept. The building the man was being held at was a special facility built to hold criminals and rogue ninjas for a short while, until they could be transferred somewhere else or in rare cases executed. Are you sure about this, Daichi? Genma stopped before entering and looked at the kid. The genin wordlessly nodded, and the two entered the building. Soon they were escorted to the cell where their target was being kept. Daichi looked around and kept committing the routes and cells to his memory. I might never know when I'll need this information. Soon the two ninjas reached a cell. The genin looked around and wasn't that impressed. Standard interrogation chamber. Table and chair in the middle with the suspect strapped to the chair and a one-way mirror. As Daichi looked around, two people came near them. One was the minister Taji Maima, and the other was a ninja wearing the leaf headband and flak jacket. The leaf nin didn't spare Daichi a second glance and entered the room. The gamer ninja instantly used Observe on the shinobi. Level 62. A chunin and an interrogation specialist. The minister was surprised to see Daichi there. What are you doing here? I can monitor his vitals and tell if he's lying or not. I also want to see their interrogation tactics up close. If I ever needed to use those tactics, or in case I needed to create countermeasures to protect myself. Thank you for the assistance, but I think Haiji there can get the answers we need from him quickly. He turned his attention to the man who was tied up in his chair and unconscious. So that's the man who created the seal that was used to infect my son, huh? Daichi sighed and spoke in a soft tone. I can help. I know you're angry, but if we have the wrong information, or if it takes too much time, I'm sure you know what you have to lose. I just want to help. The minister stilled and then sighed. He looked at Genma and the Jonin nodded his head. The elderly man knocked on the glass once and gave permission to Daichi to go inside. The genin went inside the room and stood near the culprit. Observe. Toshigo Heza, 41 years old. Level 70. Above average intelligence, but his physical attributes are all normal. He's in the mid-chunin range. Condition: drugged, sleeping. Daichi placed his palms on the man's head and it started glowing green. What are you doing? The interrogator asked. I'm monitoring his vitals. His body temperature, pupil dilation, pulse rate, and even the electrical signals his body is sending. I will know if he's lying or not. The interrogator Haiji looked like he wanted to say something, but then glanced at the mirror and then kept quiet. He knew the situation was extremely serious, and he didn't want to offend the minister. Without saying another word, Haiji took a syringe and injected its contents into Toshigo's arm, and a few moments later, the man groggily woke up. What the hell? He shook his head and quickly came to lucidity. He looked around and felt the bindings on his body. He struggled for a few seconds, and then stilled. 1 minute I'm in bed and the next... What's going on? Where am I? You're in an interrogation room currently in the heart of the fire capital. Heiji answered the trapped man's questions. Why am I here? I haven't committed any crimes or done anything against the people of this country. Daichi paid close attention to him and then glanced at Heiji and gave a small nod. His voice and body movements suggest he's telling the truth. It seems this kid might have some skills. Toshigo then turned his attention to the genin with the green glowing hands. They're sending kids into interrogation now? You must be scraping the bottom of the barrel. Heiji slapped Toshigo's face lightly a few times to get his attention back on him. Hey, I'm the one asking the questions. Now, there has been an incident last night, and now a lot of powerful people are upset and want answers, and they are willing to go far to get them. Cooperate, and you'll find yourself back home in one piece. Toshigo was silent, and then nodded his head. What do you want? You made a special flash paper with some sort of a seal on it, didn't you? Toshigo was silent for a few moments, and then nodded his head. Yes, I did. It was made about 2 months ago. Who gave you the commission to make that item? Toshigo sighed and shook his head. If I give out my client details like that, then I won't have much of a reputation. Heiji narrowed his eyes. Even if it means inviting the wrath of the fire daimyo and the people of his court. Toshigo's eyes widened in panic. Wow, hold on. Fire daimyo? People of the court. What are you talking about? Seeing the genuine panic and confusion on their suspect's face, Heiji decided to give him one chance. The nephew of the third minister is dead via a poison that spreads through the air. Traces of your flash paper were found at the scene. You have one chance to come clean, otherwise I'll have to resort to more barbaric tactics. I have nothing to do with that. Daichi nodded his head, and Heiji sighed and looked at the tied-up man. You have 1 minute to explain who gave you the order to create that paper with that seal and why. Go. Toshigo sighed and began his side of the story. 2.5 months ago, a man came to see me. He was in disguise and said he wanted a special seal that could dispense aerosol particles into the atmosphere in a small space. And it had to be done in a way that would leave no evidence. And you didn't ask what he was going to do with it. I did. He said he was going to use it for a robbery in some minor village in Lightning Country. The seal was going to be infused with sleeping gas, and he said he was going to use it on some guard. Daichi didn't detect any lies and indicated as such to the interrogator. Heiji sighed at the situation. His tone, throat, and eye movements all indicate he's telling the truth, and this kid is also convinced of that. His history suggests he's telling the truth. He has made it a point not to antagonize anyone in Fire Country, so we're just looking at a patsy and an unknowing accomplice. Look, I had no idea about poisoning the minister's nephew or any such. If I did, I would have backed out. I'm telling the truth. Toshigo said with a pleading tone. Heiji sighed and spoke. The sad thing is, we believe you, but Lord Leorio is dead, so if you want to walk out of here, then you'll have to give me something. The culprit was silent for a few moments. He was in disguise. Most of my clients send one of their underlings or disguise themselves to see me, so I didn't think much of it, but there was one detail that stuck with me. He had a scar on his right palm. What kind of scar? Heiji leaned in. I think it was a burn mark that was healed long ago. It looked like an 8. The scar was in the center of the palm. I don't remember much else. Heiji motioned for Daichi to stop. The genin stopped using his technique and quietly left the room. Outside the room, Genma sighed as he heard the description. Finding someone with that scar in such a short time, even assuming they're in the capital. Genma turned to the man and saw that Lord Taji was silent and in deep concentration. Sir? That scar he mentioned. I know that from somewhere. I've seen it. I just can't seem to remember where. Taji said in a low voice. Genma frowned as he heard that. So he met the person behind this. That means whoever did this has some sort of a connection with him. Could it be because of the position as the third minister, or could it be an enemy his nephew made? At that moment, Taji gasped almost in shock. His eyes widened as he remembered a face he'd almost forgotten. I know who did this. I know who poisoned my nephew. Daichi and Genma looked at each other in surprise. Looks like we have a new lead. Thanks for listening. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 199. Capture the Mercenary. Chapter 199 of the Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. Flashback. Third Minister's home. Please, you can't do this. A man wearing black and red luxury clothes with short gray hair, black eyes, and goatee shouted in anger as he was held back by his guard. I can. It is in my authority to seize all of your son's assets. A cold reply that had no hint of mercy came from another standing on the other side. The well-dressed man fell to his knees. Please, Lord Taji, have mercy on him. He won't survive. The second man, Lord Taji, looked down at the person who was on his knees crying. He sighed as he thought about the situation. Sometimes justice must be impartial and merciless. You said your son won't survive. What about all the people he exploited? What about all the ones that were killed due to his greed? The wealth he built does not belong to him. Taji spoke in a cold tone. After a moment he continued. You asked for mercy? I'm only taking all of his wealth. I'm going to redistribute it to the right people. Jadayu Goda. I'm only taking your son's money, not his life. That's mercy, and it's more than he deserves. The man Jadayu looked up at the third minister. He won't survive. I won't be able to protect him. Your son had a tendency to make enemies. If anything happens to him, then you can only chalk it up to karmic retribution. You. The anger on Jadayu's face was palpable. The guards protecting the minister raised their weapons and pointed them at the man. Lord Taji raised his hand, stopping his men from taking any action. Leave my home. There is nothing more to discuss. You think you have the right to take what belongs to my son. The furious shout from the man made Lord Taji angry. You forget your place, Jadayu. How dare you raise your voice against me in my own home? Restrain him and take him to the holding cells. Jadayu and his guard Junichiro were restrained, escorted out, and taken to the holding cells in the capital. Taji looked on, and as his guards were escorting the two out, he saw the right palm of Jadayu's guard, a palm that had a burn scar in the shape of the figure 8. Flashback end. A few days after that incident, I heard that his son died. It was an attack from one of the many adversaries he created. I felt bad for the man who lost his son, and I let him go. I kept an eye on him for a while. He and his wife moved away from the capital. After that, I didn't hear from him again. Taji finished his story as he stood in his garden in his home. You said Jadayu's son committed crimes. What exactly did he do? Daichi asked the man. Jadayu was a wealthy man, but he worked hard for his money. He earned every coin that he has. His son, on the other hand, was the opposite of that man. He was cruel, vicious, and had no problems lying and exploiting others. There are several mines in and near the border of this country that hold several valuable minerals and elements. Jadayu's son Wakamu killed minor wealthy merchants and took over their businesses in secret. He paid off the right people to not get caught, and once he had enough capital, he bought the rights to some of the mines. He used people from minor villages to work in the mines, didn't he? Daichi knew where this story was going. Taji nodded his head. Yes. He went to one of the smaller remote villages on the border of the country to avoid scrutiny. He had several people on his payroll to keep trouble out of his way, and to keep his evil deeds a secret. At first he promised the people of that village money and riches, but as time went by, the people learned his true nature. He enslaved them and killed those that rebelled to make an example. Only 23 years old, and he already had a cold, black heart. In just a short amount of time, he made plenty of money. But with that came enemies. Let me guess. Rival businessmen, competitors, and those looking to take over. Genma spoke. Taji nodded. Wakamu's greed only grew. He killed those that tried to take over his operations and took their wealth as well. But he made far too many enemies. It was at this time that Lord Ryuga and myself started learning the truth about him. And since it was my job to oversee the business operations, protection of merchants and people, I took immediate action. I seized all his assets and imprisoned him. Taji was silent for a few moments and then continued. Jadayu, hearing what happened to his son, spent a significant portion of his wealth to get as many influential people as he could on his side. At last, I was forced to let Wakamu out of prison, but that's the best they could get. And without his money and protection, the enemies he made came for him, Genma concluded. Daichi had a thoughtful expression as he heard the full story. So this is a revenge plot. His son died and he couldn't save him. So that's why he went after Leorio. His son died and now Leorio has to suffer the same fate. An eye for an eye, Daichi muttered, and the two men turned to the genin. Now it makes sense why he poisoned your nephew. Why he used a custom-built poison. He wants you to feel the same way he did. Taji closed his eyes and took a deep breath of air. What kind of a mind thinks this way? The kind that has no problems attacking a family member of an official of the royal court. Someone in enough psychological pain to not care about the stupidity of the situation from their perspective. Genma sighed and came near the minister. The poisoning of your nephew is the equivalent of writing one's own death sentence. He knows that if someone finds out what he did, there will be no escape for him from death. So for him to do something so bold, we need to proceed with the assumption that he's not done yet. You and your wife need to be careful. The minister nodded in understanding. These last several hours, all my guards and staff have been properly checked and interrogated. We don't have a spy. I'm sure of it. Then our best move is to find Jadayu and his guard. My men will help you with the search. With a detailed description of their targets, Genma and Daichi left the minister's home and began their search. Several of the royal guards and leaf ninja stationed at the capital also lent their hands. Time went by, and soon it was nighttime. The minister was at the daimyo's palace, reporting his findings to Lord Ryuga while his wife was home. Fuimaima was in bed alone with tears running down her cheeks. She stayed up late and soon felt too tired and slowly went to sleep. A couple hours later, a shadowy figure in black clothes entered her room from the open window. He looked at her sleeping form for a moment, and then took a knife from his pouch. Just as he was about to plunge the knife into the old woman's heart, a senbon came from the shadows with great speed and struck the assailant's right shoulder, paralyzing the arm. It was also coated with a special enzyme that momentarily disrupts the chakra in one's body, rendering the person unable to use jutsu. What the? Before the enemy could even process what was happening, several chakra threads came from the shadows and restricted his movements. The next second the door to the room opened and Genma came in. He had long ninja wire in his hands and he quickly restrained the enemy. You can come out now, Daichi. From the spot where the senbon came, Daichi appeared. He changed his chakra strings to lightning and quickly knocked the intruder unconscious. Strange. It didn't look like he felt any pain when I electrocuted him. Looks like your plan worked, Genma-sensei. The boy spoke as he looked at the knocked-out ninja. If you can't find them, make them come to you. The special jonin had a smirk as he rolled the senbon in his mouth. Flashback. Genma and Daichi met with the minister in the evening. You said your guard Tadashi was a sensory ninja. Do you have anyone else under you who are also sensory ninjas? Genma asked the minister. No. We've been searching the capital and surrounding area, but still nothing. They must have gone underground or left the country. Genma nodded to Daichi's theory. It's a possibility. The odds of finding them in time were dwindling with each second, and the special jonin knew it. But we need to find them. The desperation on the minister's face was evident. The jonin ninja was silent for a few moments, and then shared an idea. If we can't find them, then how about we make them come to us? It only took Daichi a second to realize his superior's plan. Wait, you're talking about setting up a bait and trapping them? What makes you so sure that they're even in the capital? If I were Jadayu, I'd put some serious distance between this place and myself after what happened. Guys who are so motivated by revenge, they have a one-track mind and they're somewhat easy to predict if you know their personality. Genma turned to the minister. You said he loved his son very much, right? Taji sighed and replied. Yes, it was one of his few faults. He loved his son too much to see what Wakamu was becoming. And even then, someone like that, I have a feeling he's still here in the capital. That flash paper wasn't easy to find. And without that paper, we never would have reached Toshigo and wouldn't have known about Jadayu. So for the moment, he must think he's safe. He will definitely try to attack. We need a bait. Genma looked at the minister. Lord Taji sighed as he saw the ninja's look. I'm not happy with this, but I suppose I have no choice. What do you need me to do? Genma shook his head. Forgive me, Lord Taji, but it's not you I was referring to. Then who? The minister's eyes widened in shock and then turned to anger. Absolutely not. I won't put her in danger. I will be the one. Genma refused. Setting you up would be too obvious, and it probably won't work, and we need Tadashi to leave as well. What? Why Fuyi? And why does Tadashi need to leave? This attack on your family was well prepared. To execute this plan so well, they must have intel on you. Your daily routine, number of guards, their abilities. The day Leorio was poisoned, your guard Tadashi only left the house for 3 hours when he was accompanying you. We have to assume the intruder got inside and placed the seal at that time. So there is a good chance he must know that Tadashi is a sensor ninja. Taji nodded to Genma's reasoning. Makes sense. If you're here in the house and your guard Tadashi isn't, then it might look like you're vulnerable for an attack, but a smart person would be able to tell that it's a trap. Same goes for the reverse. If your guard is here and you're not, it shows that we're waiting for the enemy. Why can't you be the bait? You can transform into someone else, can't you? The minister asked, and Genma sighed. We can do that, but the chances of our enemy finding out that something is wrong is too great. The plan might fail. We have to do this for real. Taji was silent as he heard Genma's plan. So you want me to leave and take Tadashi with me, and leave Fuyi here alone at the mercy of a killer? She won't be alone. We'll keep her safe. We promise. Daichi spoke, and the minister looked at the strong, confident face of the genin. After a few moments, he sighed and reluctantly agreed. Both ninjas created shadow clones, and together the group was seen leaving Taji's home. Daichi and Genma headed away from the house, while the minister made his way to the daimyo's castle. Don't let anything happen to Fuyi. Saying a prayer in his heart, the minister left with heavy steps. The shadow clones of Genma and Daichi continued their investigation and movements in the streets. Flashback end. Observe. Daichi used his information acquisition skill on the man currently restrained in the middle of the interrogation room. There was Heiji and another ninja from the Yamanaka clan trying to gather intel from the suspect. His name is Junichiro, age 38 and level 80. Jadayu took him in from the streets when he was young and raised him. He's trained in information gathering and stealth skills, high Chunin level ninja and Jadayu's trusted bodyguard. As Daichi read the information his system showed, he found something that surprised him. Well, this is interesting. The young Jainin looked at the man sitting silently and knew the information he read changed everything. If we keep going like this, we won't get anything in time. Should I inform them now? No, I'll wait and see how this plays out. If that Yamanaka can get inside his head, then my assistance won't be required. Daichi, Genma, Yondu and Lord Taji were waiting silently outside as the interrogators did their work. Almost 30 minutes passed, and still there was no progress. The Yamanaka ninja trying to read Junichiro's mind stopped his jutsu. He looked at Heiji and shook his head, and both of them stopped their work and got out. We have a major problem, the Yamanaka clan ninja said. That's obvious, Yondu muttered. This guy is a lot tougher than he looks. His pain tolerance is extremely high, and he hasn't shown any fear. His mental fortitude is much higher than your average ninja. Heiji only met a handful of people with such intense discipline, strength, and loyalty. And it's not just that. His mind has several strong barriers preventing anyone from getting any information. The blonde mind reader informed the group. How long would it take you to get past them? Genma asked. Whoever created these shields did their job well. It would take me a day, at least, to break through them. Damn it. We don't have that kind of time. Taji clenched his fists and gritted his teeth in helplessness. Heiji turned to Daichi and spoke. Hey, you're a medic ninja, right? Can you check his body and see if there is something wrong with him? What are you getting at, Heiji? Genma was puzzled at the man's request. Even during all the physical pain I inflicted, he didn't even flinch. That kind of pain tolerance. I've never seen anything like it. Daichi hummed and looked at his temporary sensei. Genma nodded, and the young medic entered the room and made his way to Junichiro. The man was silent as the genin came to him and started examining him. Daichi's hands glowed green, and his analysis confirmed what his observe skill showed. A couple minutes later, he stopped his jutsu and got out of the room. So, you were right. He has congenital anhidrosis. It's a very rare genetic mutation that doesn't allow one to feel physical pain. So that's it. Now it makes sense. Heiji sighed and muttered, "What about other sensations, like touch and heat?" Yondu asked the boy. "I checked. His senses are numb. Even if you freeze his hand or put burning hot coal on his palms, he would only feel a mild temperature difference. Nothing that would make him uncomfortable." "Great. So we have a guy who can't feel physical pain and has mental blocks that can stop a Yamanaka. How are we supposed to find Jidaiyu like this?" Taji's frustration was felt by everyone but Daichi. He had an idea as to what kind of a man he was dealing with. Daichi thought about what he was going to do next. "I need to complete this mission, and the only way to do that is to extract the information from that guy. I need to get a sample of the poison before it's too late. Looks like it's time for me to play the villain." "Let me talk to him." Daichi suddenly spoke up. Everyone looked at the Jinin in confusion. "I don't think you can appeal to the kind nature in him. I have a feeling he's not going to open up to you that way," Genma said to the boy. "We don't have any other option right now. Let me talk to him, just 10 to 15 minutes. I'll be done by then." The adults looked at each other, and then Taji and Genma nodded, giving their permission. "Daichi, do whatever you have to do," the third minister said in a hard, cold tone. Genma frowned at that, but didn't say anything. "I'm only going to talk to him, sir," Daichi said and entered the room. The genin closed the door behind him and looked at the man. He had bloody lips and small wounds and bruises all over his body. Daichi sighed and went to the corner where a small can of water was placed. He took the cup on top of the can and drank a mouthful. He filled the cup again and turned to the other occupant in the room. Daichi went near the silent man and placed the cup near his lips, allowing him to drink. Outside the room, Heiji frowned at the scene. What is he doing? He's not going to get him to talk by showing him kindness, and by giving him water, that man will regain some energy and will be able to hold out much longer. This was a mistake. "Be quiet. Daichi isn't an idiot. He knows what he's doing. Let's give him his 15 minutes, Genma said in a cold voice, and the Chunin didn't say anything else. Inside the room, Junichiro drank the cup empty and sighed. He kept silent and looked at the boy. Daichi placed the cup back in the corner of the room and sat on the chair opposite to him. "I heard your name is Junichiro. Let's talk." Daichi gave the man a small smile and began. "Thanks for listening." Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Subscribe for more. Support links in the description. Rights holder? Contact link in the description. Chapter 200. Live or Die. Make your choice. Chapter 200 of The Adventurous Gamer Ninja. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto or the gamer. Please support the official release. The two stared at each other for a few moments, and it was Daichi who broke the silence. "Hello. My name is Daichi Hekima. I'm a genin from the Leaf Village." The man was silent as he looked at the genin ninja. Seeing his silence and his stone-cold face, Daichi chuckled and spoke. "Something tells me you already know who I am." Junichiro said nothing and just gazed at the boy. "The strong, silent type, huh? You know you're not doing much to break the stereotypes here." Daichi looked at the man and just gave a small smile. "Oh, I almost forgot," he said to himself and took a kunai from his pouch and came near the tied-up man. Heiji frowned and Genma narrowed his eyes. Everyone else who was standing outside just looked on to see what would happen next. Daichi placed the weapon on the table right in front of Junichiro. The man was secured to his seat and couldn't move his limbs, so he could only stare at the sharp weapon. Junichiro just looked at the kunai for a second, and then turned to the boy. "If you think you can get me to talk by torture, you're severely underestimating me." "He speaks, at last. For a second I thought you were a mute. And no, I'm not going to torture you. I'm just here to talk," Daichi replied, taking his seat at the opposite end of the table. Jidaiu's guard was confused at that. "Then why the kunai?" "It's an experiment. I can't say anything more at the moment." Daichi didn't reveal the reason for putting the weapon in front of him, and both of them fell into silence once again. It was Junichiro who restarted the conversation. "How did you find that paper? I thought it was impossible to trace it." "It would have been. Not to brag, but you see, my senses are much sharper than the ordinary ninjas. I studied medical ninjutsu and learned to analyze particles even microscopic in nature. I examined the bed thoroughly and saw the faint discoloration on the wood due to the burn. There was a faint distinctive scent at that spot, and I quickly figured out that flash paper was used. My sensei and the others did the rest. Now that I'm saying it out loud, it does sound like I'm bragging a little, huh? Daichi chuckled to himself. I read your file. Lord Taji gathered some information about you the last time you were here in the capital with your master, Jidaiyu. Junichiro just tilted his head and scoffed. You don't know anything about me. Oh, on the contrary, I know quite a bit. Your family sold you to some wealthy merchant when you were just a boy. Several months later, he died in a bandit attack and you were out on the streets with no one to turn to. That's when the merchant Jidaiyu took you in. He raised you and soon you became his trusted aide. And you also have a genetic defect, congenital anhidrosis. You can't feel pain. Daichi recalled the information he read on Junichiro. Lord Taji did extensive research on Jidaiyu and his guard last year. It was due to his son, Wakamu, but who would have thought that this info would come in handy like this at such a time? You think you know me just because you read something in a file? You presume too much. The man was angry as he focused on Daichi's face. All right, enlighten me. Tell me your story. I want to know where this deep devotion and loyalty to your master comes from. Daichi slightly leaned forward with a serious gaze and wanted to hear what the man had to say. Junichiro was silent for a few seconds and then decided to indulge the genin. From the day I could remember, I never felt pain. My sense of touch was also mild, and because of that I always got into accidents and hurt myself. But I never cried about it. My birth parents, they were poor and couldn't take me to a doctor to get me checked. And they were disturbed that I got injured more often than the other kids, and even more when I never showed any pain or anger when I got hurt. They called me a freak of nature. Daichi's eyes slightly softened hearing that. Ignorance breeds ignorance. What you have is a genetic mutation, meaning they were the ones responsible for whatever defects you were born with. Of course, God also played a part in giving you that shitty deal, if there is such an entity as God anyway. Hearing that, the anger on Junichiro's face lessened. He continued with his story. A wealthy merchant came and offered to buy me. What my parents saw as a curse, he saw as an opportunity. He bought me and kept me as a slave for his amusement. 5 months later, when I was out of the house, bandits struck and killed him. I became homeless and spent months on the streets, going hungry for days, and if lucky, I would find some food in the trash to eat. Jidaiyu found you at this point, didn't he? The restrained man looked down and spoke in a soft tone. He had a small smile as he remembered that moment. Yes, he saw a child trying to eat food that was covered in dirt and filth and took him in. Junichiro stopped for a few moments and then with a hardened face looked up at the boy. He cleaned me, bathed me, fed me, taught me how to read, write, took care of me when I was sick. He taught me how to laugh. He didn't care about my afflictions. He saw me as a son, and I look at him as my father. I swore a long time ago that I would do anything for his happiness. You're willing to die for him? Daichi said in a small, soft tone. Yes. If giving my life means he could live, then I will gladly do it without hesitation. No matter what you do to me, you won't get his location. I won't give you that information. The conviction in his voice stirred something in Daichi's heart. I want that. Such loyalty and devotion. Damn. What I wouldn't give to have someone like him as my subordinate. The people outside the room frowned as they listened. That kind of loyalty. It's rare. Genma looked at the man with new eyes. Such deep devotion. It's a shame, Jidaiyu. If he hadn't poisoned my nephew, I would have let him live. Taji looked through the one-way mirror and stood stoically. Back in the room, Daichi took a deep breath and steeled his heart. He couldn't show any mercy or sympathy now, or it would ruin his plan. With the smile erased from his face, Daichi asked the man a question. You said you were willing to die for your master, but are you willing to live for him? The captured guard was puzzled. Daichi continued. Since you've told me your story, I suppose it's only fair that I share something with you as well. As you may know, I studied under Lady Tsunade and learned her medical skills. She is the best in her field. Her knowledge, the skills in the medical arts, It's amazing to see her at work. But one of her few problems is that she is a gambling addict. And her luck. My God. The woman has the worst luck on the planet. Daichi sighed and shook his head, thinking about his mentor. He carried on. A year ago, Lady Tsunade and I were hiking through the Three Wolves mountain range looking for rare herbs. During our journey, we encountered the people living there on top of the snowy mountain. Those people rarely come down and interact with the earth dwellers, as they called us. They had several precious herbs and medicines in their possession. Ones we wanted to find and study. The tribal leader, a man of great cunning and wisdom, quickly found out about my sensei's gambling addiction and made several wagers. As you can expect, she lost all the wagers made, and we had to give up our goods one by one until only the clothes on our backs were left. And so, to get back what we lost and get the herbs they have, I made a bet with the man. Lady Tsunade and I would be their servants forever if he won, or we would get everything they took from us, plus a few samples of their rare herbs. Thank God it was only Tsunade's skills that were passed on to me, and not her luck. We would have been screwed in that case. Is there a point to this? Junichiro asked Daichi with a scoffing smile. I'm getting there. Patience. Daichi chuckled and replied. Now where was I? Oh yeah, we won the bet and got everything we needed. The tribal leader was impressed with my guts and invited me to witness their moon dance ritual. It was something they did once a year. It was to honor the moon god for his blessings and such. During the ritual, I watched a tribal member suspend himself from a tall tree with flesh hooks through his chest. 6 hours he dangled. His skin stretched like rubber, and below him was a deep pit filled with hot, burning coal. He didn't show any pain or discomfort. It was as if his soul left his body to communicate with the moon god's spirit. Junichiro and those standing outside were silent as they listened to Daichi's story. It was quite captivating. Once the ritual was over and the man was safely on the ground, I walked up to him. I asked him whether he was afraid of falling into that burning pit or not. Daichi's smile left his face, and he became serious. He looked straight into Junichiro's eyes and spoke in a somewhat cold tone. He looked at me with a straight face and said no. He told me that death was just another short stop in our spirit's journey. Like you, he wasn't afraid of death or pain and suffering. But you know what terrified him? The thought of spending his days in a dark hole, deep in the earth, trapped, unable to move, and just waiting for the end. The sudden change in Daichi's story took everyone by surprise. The genin looked at the restrained man with no hint of mercy. I know you're willing to die for your master, but are you willing to live for him? If you don't tell me where Jadayu is, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to make a concrete box just big enough to get you in, and then I'm going to bury you alive deep into the earth. Daichi stood and slowly walked up to the tied-up man. He placed a hand on his shoulder. The human body is a paradox. It can be unbelievably strong, and at the same time, it's incredibly fragile. We can survive without food for 2 months before giving up. But if you force my hand and make me bury you, I will make sure you live far longer than 2 months. Junichiro, I want you to imagine your chakra sealed and your body restrained, being trapped in a small box. No way out. Just 2 small holes that will bring you just enough air and an IV drip that will keep you alive for years. And no one will stop me. You know why? Because of you, Lord Taji's nephew is dead, and he will make sure you suffer his pain. As Daichi painted that picture, the clam facade of the man started to slowly vanish. He looked in horror at the child near him. You monster. To you, I could be. Daichi took a scroll from his pouch and took out several things from it. He placed a vial first on the table. This is a special concoction that will destroy the part of your brain that makes you sleep. Without sleep, the toxins in the brain build up and it deteriorates the organ. This process will drive the person insane. Their mind would slowly collapse in on itself without the person even realizing it. Junichiro shook his head defiantly. And no, that can't be. The Yamanaka. It doesn't matter how many protections he placed inside your mind. If your organ is physically failing, then no amount of mental defenses will help you. In fact, those shields will only prolong your agony. Daichi said, relaying the cold hard facts. As Jidayu's guards stayed silent, Daichi continued putting on the pressure. The next item he placed on the table was an IV bag. The liquid in this bag contains essential vitamins and boosters. It can keep a person in your condition who is relatively unharmed alive for several months. Attach a few of these to you and you'll live for several years. Daichi looked Junichiro dead in his eyes and gave an ultimatum. If you force my hand, I will inject the vial, hook you up to this bag, and bury you so deep so you won't even be able to think about seeing the sun. Daichi walked around him and looked at the man with a stern visage. You're strong, but you're not that strong. Trapped in that darkness, your mind would collapse and your body would slowly destroy itself from within. I have no doubt that by the 6th or 7th day you'd scream your throat bloody, and by the end of the 2nd week, most of your sanity will be gone. And each second from that point forward would feel like an eternity to you. Daichi became silent and got back to his seat. He looked at the unparalleled horror and fear that appeared on the man's face. Jesus Christ, I sound like such a fucking edgelord, but I have no choice. If I want to complete my quest, I need this guy to talk. And since my mana puppetry isn't working on him, this will have to do. The people standing outside were silent and had wide eyes and dropped jaws. Never did they imagine the charming Jinin to have such a dark side to him. They saw the unimaginable fear on Junichiro's face, and they could perfectly understand that reaction. They would show the same reaction if such a threat was posed against any one of them. Junichiro looked at Daichi's face to see if he was bluffing, but seeing the boy's cold, hardened face, he knew the truth. He's really going to do it. The second this realization sank in, Junichiro tried to reach for the kunai that was in front of him. Even though he was strapped to the chair, he made every effort to break free and reach for the weapon. He tried his best for several seconds before stopping. The man was breathing hard with sweat dripping down his face. He looked shocked at what he was experiencing. You went for it, so you really tired to kill yourself for your master. And since biting your tongue isn't an option, you went for the blade. This was your experiment? The restrained man asked in fear. Yes. It was a test on the human psyche. You're sweating. This must be a new experience for you, isn't it? I heard that people with your condition rarely sweat. Daichi spoke in a casual tone, looking at the man. He stood from his spot and walked up to the man. Daichi pointed to the vial and IV bag and gave the man a choice. A prolonged, agonizing, painful life, or a quick, relatively painless death. Daichi said, pointing at the kunai. What do you choose? Live or die? Junichiro was silent, and several moments later, tears formed and started rolling down his cheeks. He didn't make a single sound, but the tears kept coming. Daichi was silent, and he patiently waited. A minute later, Junichiro spoke. I want you to do it. Daichi raised an eyebrow and waited for the man to elaborate. Do what? I will tell you Master Jidayu's location, but I want you to kill me right after. It has to be you, no one else. A quick, painless death. Give me your word that you'll do it. Daichi was silent and glanced at the mirror in the room for a second. Genma was about to step forward and knock on the glass to stop Daichi, but Lord Taji stopped him. The special Jonin gritted his teeth and then thought about what was at stake and stood still. Seeing no response from the other side, Daichi made his decision. Tell me your master's location, and I'll give you a quick death. You have my word. Junichiro sighed and then spoke. East Plaza, Kumuragi Mansion. That's where he is. Daichi was scanning his vitals and saw that the man was telling the truth. He sighed and picked up the kunai. I hope you have better luck in your next life. With those words, and before anyone could come in and stop him, Daichi plunged the kunai into the man's heart. R. Within seconds, the life faded from his eyes and blood slowly trickled down his lips and chest. He placed everything back in his scroll and slowly walked out of the room. The Jinin looked at the faces of everyone with an unreadable expression. East Plaza, Kumuragi Mansion. We should move quickly. With those words, he walked away before anyone could say anything. Author's note. The Adventurous Gamer Ninja is my first story. The character Daichi is a morally gray ninja. His self-interest will be his first priority, but he does take actions based on his emotions on a few occasions, like saving Ryo Uchiha. Now, I have never written a scene with an edge theme like this before, so I'm not sure what you viewers are feeling. Does this interrogation come as natural, cool, or forced? Do you find anything cringy when reading it? I'm curious to know your thoughts. Comment below. On another note, enjoy the 3K chapter and the 200th chapter of this story. Disclaimer: all credit goes to the original author. This is a fan-made AI narration intended to bring more exposure to the novel. If you are the author or rights holder and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please contact us at fableverseaudio@gmail.com. Narrated by Fableverse Audio. Like, subscribe, share to support immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy our work and want to support future projects, consider donating. Links can be found in the description below. Donors may suggest a novel for narration. If it meets our restrictions/policy, we will consider posting the first 100 chapters.